Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Muskegon Planning Commission. It's nice to see you all here, and I know many of you are eager to give some input to us, and we're eager to hear what you have to say. Those of you at home will have an opportunity to call in at the appropriate time and give your opinion also. I'd like to tell you that the City Planning Commission operates a little different than most committees in the fact that most all of our business is done in the form of a public hearing. And in a public hearing, I will announce the case. The staff will give a definition of what the request is. The commissioners will have an opportunity to ask staff questions. Then the person making the request or their representative can come to the podium, give their name and address, and talk about what their project is. The City Commission will then have questions for that individual. When they're done asking questions of that individual, I will ask the public. Please raise your hand. I will give you an opportunity to come up. You come up and give your name and address. If you're elected to give your address, just write it on a piece of paper and hand it to the clerk. And you can give your speech, what you want to say. Limit it to 3 minutes, please, because we got a big crowd here tonight. And I guess that's it. We'll begin.
Sam just stopped out. I'll do roll call. Ken Johnson.
Here.
Eric Hood.
Here.
Jonathan Seifert.
Here.
Destiny Keener is excused. Joe Doyle.
Here.
Brian Mazade. Jill Montgomery Keast.
Here.
Shoni Blake.
Here.
Tim Mikulski.
Here.
Brian did notify us he wasn't going to be here, so he's excused too.
Okay.
Justin needed too.
Yeah.
Okay. Second is on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the meeting of September 14th.
I'll move to approve the minutes from September 14th meeting as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Next, we go to old business. Old business. Hearing case 2023-24.
This is a request for a special use permit for a drive-through window at the subway located at 1848 East Sherman Boulevard. This case was tabled from last meeting because staff didn't believe at the time that there was enough stacking spaces. However, the applicant has been able to update their renderings, does show enough adequate spaces. There's 5. They also did a little bit of modification to the one parking space where you can't park there in front of the door. That makes it a lot more accessible and less dangerous for people. And we have reviewed this with the engineering department, and they're okay with this. So staff's in full support.
Okay. Is this a public hearing today?
We had
No.
the public hearing last meeting.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I don't have a motion.
Nobody.
I mean, I'll
I'm looking
make
for
the
the
motion.
Yeah.
I move the request for a special use permit for a drive-through window at 1848 East Sherman Boulevard be approved with the following conditions based on the findings of fact pertaining to the standards for approval of discretionary uses, and that condition is impact protection is installed in the corners of the building in the drive-through.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the request for a drive-in window. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a question for staff. So engineering has reviewed this and given its approval for the changes, and it definitely is improvement from what we'd seen previously. I do have a couple questions. One of which is the ordering. Where do they order? Like, is that going to be the same windows? Are they going to be earlier? Like, do we have the potential for
that's-
stacking going around still, or like
That's
what?
the same window, I believe.
So the
And
same window for ordering and paying and everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other question is, did public safety get a chance to look at this? Did they have any concerns, like with the ingress egress there?
Yeah, public safety's routed these plans as well, so they didn't have any concerns either.
They didn't have any concerns? Okay. Thank you.
Any other?
It was the fire marshal's recommendation as well to put those bollards on there. So
Okay.
on the
Thank you.
Okay. There's no more discussion. Roll call.
Shawnee Blake,
Yes. Yes, I support.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Jim Montgomery Keast,
Yes.
Tim McCoskey.
Yes. Did you get the second?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next we go to hearing case 2023-25.
This is a request to rezone 162 East Apple, 170 East Apple, 974 Spring Street from B2 Convenience and Comparison Business District to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core, and to rezone 151, 157, 171, 181 Allen, and 971 J Street from R3 High Density Single Family Residential to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core. So these parcels are all adjacent to each other. They are seeking a rezoning to allow for affordable apartment units. The only property that still contains a structure is 162 East Avenue, which contains a vacant commercial building. The house at 964 Street at the corner of Spring and Allen is not included into this project. The rezoning request comes for an affordable residential apartment unit, and the development plans include a 53-unit senior housing development. The properties just to the north of this project, across Allen Avenue, were also recently rezoned to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core in anticipation of another similar project that we have before us tonight. And we have sent notices out to everybody within 300 feet, and we have not heard any comments from the public. We also do have the applicant here today.
You have any questions for staff, commissioners? Okay, would the person requesting the rezoning like to come up to the podium, give your name and address, and speak to your proposal?
How's it going? I'm Josh Awabde. I represent, I'm here on behalf of GenCap. I'm with HGJ, the architect company. And yeah,
Can you give us an address?
my address is 543 Rock Hollow Drive, Rockford, Michigan, 49341.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about your project?
I can happily address any questions. I have some notes I can run through real quick. So, like Mike mentioned, to rezone to the form-based code, GenCap wants to mention that they are partnering with Little River Holdings on this deal, and GenCap and HGJ also did develop together both 1021 and Berkshire and Muskegon, and hopefully this is going to be another successful project as that one was as well. Yeah, like Mike mentioned, 52 units and 52 plus units, and yeah, if I can happily address any questions if you guys have as well.
Okay, thank you. You have questions, commissioners? No, it's good. Projects that you've done are great.
Awesome, good to hear.
Very good looking. Commissioner Hood?
Yes. Once the project's up and running, who's managing it? Who's going to be managing it?
I'd have to ask GenCap that. I know GenCap's the ownership group, so I'm not sure if they're managing it as well or if they. I don't know how that works exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, that's a good question, but it's not an architect question. Hi, Jake Eckholm, Development Services Director for the City of Muskegon. So they had some issues with a previous management company at an existing carried asset, and they have since put out to bid for a new management firm. So I don't think it's determined who will be the management firm for all of their assets, but I think it's going to be a change.
Okay.
So
Great.
can't say who, but I can say it's not who it is now.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to get some clarification to confirm. So right now, what we're considering is the rezoning for the Apple Avenue and Spring Street addresses
For all of them.
from B2. So that 162 East Apple Avenue, 170 East Apple Avenue, 974 Spring Street from B2 Convenience Comparison Business to FBC Neighborhood Core, and then rezone 151, 157, 171, 181 Allen Avenue and 971 J Street. That's the one?
Yeah, so I wrote it in two different parts because there's two different underlying zonings.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the right one because elsewhere it says Gen Capital is looking at the Nelson School property. So like,
That's the
They're,
next
they're,
one.
they're in
so
there.
they're on both.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one that we're discussing right this moment. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And it's exciting. You're looking at two different projects.
No, there's the second one coming up too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Then-
have a question now?
No, I just wanted clarification.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much.
All right, I will open this to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this subject? Seeing none, commissioners?
Close. I move to close the public hearing.
Support.
Moved in, Joe Montgomery moved and Joe Doyle seconded to close the public hearing. Okay, but on what's your pleasure on the motion?
I moved, since I already read it, I'm going to read it again. I moved that the request to rezone 162 East Apple Avenue, 170 East Apple Avenue, and 974 Spring Street from B2 Convenience Comparison Business to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core Context Area and to rezone 151, 157, 171, 181 Allen Avenue and 971 J Street from R3 High Density Single Family Residential to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core Context Area be recommended to the City Commission for approval.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by the mayor and seconded by Joe Doyle. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, roll call please.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Jill Montgomery Keast,
Yes.
Shoni Blake,
Yes.
Tim McCoskey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Passes.
I
Okay,
don't think I'm-
Nope.
I'm a yes. I don't think I heard my name.
Oh, Ken Johnson. Sorry.
We got them all now. Hearing case 2023-26.
This is a request to rezone the property at 550 West Grand Avenue from Form-Based Code Urban Residential to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core by General Capital Acquisitions. This is the former Nelson School. The parcel measures 9.5 acres and the building is approximately 78,000 square feet. The applicant seeking a rezoning to construct affordable residential apartments. The development plans include a 52-unit workforce housing development. The Form-Based Code Neighborhood Core designation allows a variety of housing options ranging from row houses to large multiplexes, and it really would fit in well with the building type to allow for apartments for the existing building. Again, notice was sent to everyone within 300 feet of this address, and we have not heard any comments from the public.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Would the individual or their representative making the request please come to the podium? Give us your name and address.
In case you forgot it, it's Joshua Wabday. I'm at 543 Rock Hollow Drive, Michigan, Rockford, Michigan.
Anything you'd like to tell us about this project, sir?
No, it's just, so the renovation will be primarily interior, with the exterior being existing to remain. The plan is to do new windows and kind of bring up the energy efficiency of the building quite a bit. Also want to mention that both GenCap and HGJ have done quite a bit of rehabs, both schools to new apartments. So looking forward to this one as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for? No.
I do, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, this is the one that stuck out. The General Capital is working on because I'm super excited that you're
Great.
looking at redevelopment of this property. So you're talking about preserving both the historic Nelson Elementary building as well as the newer wing, and redeveloping both buildings and facilities.
Is it the new wing? I know it's the historic. If it's the new wing, I believe. I want to say I have to look and double check. Mike, do you know off the top of your head? Mm-hmm. If it's the new wing as well. Is that all the one? It's the whole building.
The whole building.
The whole
Okay.
building. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm,
whole
I'm
building, yep.
particularly interested in the preservation of the historic
Yes.
building that is not only historically significant for our community, but architecturally unique and significant.
Correct.
So I'm thoroughly pleased that a developer is interested in repurposing that
Perfect,
facility
yep.
and keeping it a vibrant port of our community.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any plans right now with the vacant property? Because there's plenty of property surrounding it. Do you have any plans at this time of
think
just
the
keeping it
plan
open
is-
green space or what?
Yeah, it's to actually work with the school. So currently there's a Pippin after school program, and the plan is to keep the after school program, work with the school district to reutilize the rec department, maintaining the ballpark as is. So kind of working with us there right now to be able to use the same facility and resources.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool. So it'll still be a community hub.
Yes.
And gathering
Yeah,
space.
that's the main
for
goal, yep.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful and much needed affordable and attainable workforce housing for families in our community. So thank you for your continued interest in growing with Muskegon.
Great.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you again, sir.
Thanks so much.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this, either here or at home?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please come to the podium and give your name and address.
My name is Ivan Underwood, 624 Houston Avenue. I want to know would this affect my property tax going up? Okay.
No, it shouldn't,
This have nothing to do with my property
shouldn't
tax.
have anything to do with your property, no. Well said. Yes, ma'am?
Same thing. My name is Marilyn Brooks. I live at 564 Houston Avenue, and I wanted to ask also the question that Mr. Underwood just asked, would it affect my property taxes? And also, I would like to continue to see a diversity community to remain. Grew up in the area, went to Nelson School and everything like that. So, and would the houses be, you said the houses will be affordable? for all?
Yeah, they're going to be applied for under the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program through MISTA. So they will serve, I believe, AMI, area median income for people 30% to 120% of that.
Will they also keep the soccer field?
I'm not sure if it's going to be a soccer field, but there's no development plans over that. In fact, I believe Bidler Creek runs underneath that, so there's limited development options on that field.
Yeah, the gentleman mentioned that he plans to work with the school system to keep that a facility for after school activities.
Yeah, they should keep the soccer field.
Definitely.
Got a quick question. So it'll be, you said it'll be apartments, so it won't be a single family
No.
homes? Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's my neighborhood too, and that it's needed. We need apartments in that neighborhood. Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Lynette Marks. I live at 2265 Resort in Muskegon. I'm here just kind of to talk to this. I also have a dual role from a citizen. I am on the school board. And so we have been looking at the proposal for quite a while, going through this. One of the things that we have not reached an agreement yet, this is a piece of that puzzle, and we are excited. Some of the things that we feel are important is that there remain a playground in the area for their neighborhood. While there might be a private facility playground for the residents, we're feeling like, much like we did with the NIMS property, that the school has been a focal point for the community, and so we want to make sure that that's remaining, as well as the fact that we still need a soccer field. Even with everything that we've got going, we're going to need that. So we are going to be hopefully looking at more detailed plans of this at our meeting next week. So I just wanted to share what I knew about that.
Ms. Marks, what isn't settled? You said that
We have not come to an agreement yet, a purchase agreement, to hand off the property yet. So we're in negotiations for that, yes.
okay.
So, I mean, this is the path, but we have not made a motion. We have not closed that yet. And part of the things that we were wanting is we are wanting the property to remain, for the community. We want affordable housing. We'd like to have families with children having places to live in the city. Very excited at the possibility of, being able to maintain the school historically and keep those features. And there were also some parts of that where things would be open to the community. Had been talking about keeping the pop-in program possibly housed, in the facilities. So we're still working through all of those things and hoping to have the final stuff pulled together next week.
Yeah, being that it's a former school, I mean, it could make a whole new splash in homeschooling.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Anybody in the audience have any more questions? Any comments? Anybody at home?
He does have one.
Oh. Please come up.
My name is Wanda Glover, and I stay at 616 Houston, right across from the soccer field. And that was the young lady that just spoke. That was my concern. When you put these apartments in with families and stuff, the kids have to have some type of form of recreation. Because from what I'm looking at now, where I live now, they used to have a playground in the back of my house. Well, the city took that up. Then down on Muskegon, I see one little old jungle gym for the kids to play on like that. But you gotta have some type of outdoor entertainment for the kids if you want families to move in a neighborhood. I wanted to remain a neighborhood. And he said, well, we're gonna have apartments, but they're also putting up single family homes too, because they got them all on Muskegon and Webster. But I want them to be affordable, because you got people that are on Section 8. I own my home, but you got people that are on Section 8, and they don't have nowhere to go. Because a lot of the companies that are coming in here, like the Amazon building, it no longer house Section 8. They get out of that because it's all for money. But as long as if we could keep our neighborhood intact, I'm all for development. I'm all for the development. Long as the neighborhood stays intact, and I've been living in that neighborhood for years because I stayed on 712 West Webster when the highway went through. So I just want to know, is it going to kind of remain like that, the core for children? Because I walked to Muskegon High School and Nelson School, and now you got the school way past over there by Old Hackley Hospital. You know, places that we can walk to that's sufficient, because I don't mind walking, but just getting to different things.
I think I can't speak for everybody up here, man, but I think that's pretty much the sentiment of this commission, that's what we'd like to see also.
And then the ballpark where they play basketball, Miss Shepherd's Park, that'll remain.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item, either here or at home? Yes.
Hi, Jake Eckholm, City of Muskegon. Residence is 362 West Muskegon, so also a resident of the neighborhood in question. I wanted to just put this out there that our staff and myself have been the ones working on this on the city side, and keeping in touch with the superintendent's office as to its progress through the school system. And the school and us have been of one accord, and General Capital has been very receptive to, like, if we're going to support payment in lieu of taxes agreement, which is effectively a reduction in their payment they make to the city and all the other taxing jurisdictions, it's important to us that there be opportunities for the public to continue to have access to the sport field and the play set and the playground. And so the one iteration, I think the school board member spoke to that, is they're not sure if the school is going to retain that property and keep it as like this entity, or if they're going to take it and just keep it publicly available. But they have verbally committed that to me in every conversation, that will remain like a public space. And so I just wanted to put that on the record, that from a staffing perspective, our recommendation to the city commission on their pilot agreement was with the caveat that they commit to keeping that public area. So just wanted to clarify that.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
Move to close the public hearing.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Doyle and seconded by Jill to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, please. Opposed, say.
Oh.
Please roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Roll call, please.
Jim Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Brian Mazade.
Absent.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shoni Blake,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Tim Mikulski.
Yes. Motion passes. Next we go to hearing.
Wait.
Oh,
make the motion.
we just close the hearing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, Commissioner Doyle.
I move that the request to rezone the property at 550 West Grand Avenue from form-based code urban residential to form-based code neighborhood core be recommended to the city commission for approval.
Support.
Who supported that?
You can give it to Commissioner. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, just a remark. I just want to thank, where do you go? Our Development Services Director, Jake Eckholm, and his team on diligently working on the redevelopment of this particular property. And it's something that is very special to our community, and something that we did for a number of years been working on, ensuring that it stays intact and can be repurposed in our community. And it's very important to provide the housing and those housing choices and that affordability of housing. And I'm really pleasantly reassured tonight, hearing from both staff as well as Muskegon Public Schools, that there's a commitment to ensure that there are community assets and amenities remaining on this property, and it's going to continue to be a hub. I know when we did the millage campaign, and I was a co-chair on that $112 million millage campaign for Muskegon Public Schools. This had come up then about if Nelson closes, and there was money set aside for demolition of Nelson, something that I very much did not want to see. So I'm very happy with staff efforts on this, and very happy with General Capital on working to redevelop this. But there was a commitment by Muskegon Public Schools when we did that campaign that playground would remain for the community. And so I'm reassured that it is still the commitment tonight. So thank you. And Clara Shepherd Park's not going anywhere. That's a city park, and it shall remain.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Joe Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Joni Blake,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Tim McCloskey.
Yes. Mo-
Passed.
Motion passes. Okay, next we go to,
Mr. Chairman, can I interject for 1 second? Apparently your practice has been not to do a roll call if the motion is simply to close the public hearing.
yes,
Given that that's been your practice, why don't you continue that today, let staff discuss it, and if we're gonna make a change, do it prospectively. But if the motion is more than just to close, yes, it should be roll call.
yes.
Is that okay? Yeah.
That's fine. So we will proceed as we have been.
Yes.
Correct,
Yes, sir.
okay. Okay, hearing case 2023-27.
Whoa.
Chair, we
28.
had asked to switch around.
Okay, we're down to 28. Okay,
Okay, case 2023-28. This is a request for departures from the form-based code section on the zoning ordinance for a new development at 134, 148, 158, 168, 174 Allen by Spire Development. First, I'd like to thank the applicant for working with us over the past couple of weeks on really turning in a quality product. There was a couple of things missing, but we're really working with him to activate these street frontages and make a really urban walkable development, and they've really come through. There's a couple departures that are pretty simple that we're still asking for, and we think they're completely fine given the nature of the project. What they're asking for is a departure on the parking. The parking must be set back at least 40 feet from the street. Sam, could you pull up the new site plans that were sent in? And the intent is to have the buildings in the front with the parking in the back. However, this whole block lacks an alley, so we have to have a curb cut to the back, and in doing so, the way the buildings are positioned, we figure we may as well have those 8 to 10 parking spaces there in that curb cut rather than restricting them. And this parking layout is great from an urban standpoint. There's actually less than the 1-to-1. That's the maximum in our form-based code. Given that it's senior, they don't require as much parking, so this is going to be a great walkable development. And the other departures are for the roof. The building is supposed to have a flat roof with a parapet and a cornice expression line around the roof line. However, given this proximity to the single-family zoning and several other buildings in the area, not being the core of downtown, we're completely fine with those as well. And we did send notice to everyone within 300 feet of the development and did not hear any comments from the public.
thank you. Questions for staff?
And this is the building in the bottom left corner. There's three developments from this developer that are proposed, and the one facing Allen Avenue is the one we're discussing right now.
Any questions for staff? Would the developer or the representative please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and tell us about your project.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean McMickle, and my address is 330 West Spring Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm Vice President of Development with Spire Development, and we are the applicant behind the site plan in question. Allen Crossing will be a 45-unit senior development, and its sister project, so to speak, will be Amity Commons, which will be a 50 total unit general occupancy development as well. Both projects will be 100% affordable, just like the rezonings that were before this. We will be applying for tax credits through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, and the projects will be 100% affordable as such. This property in particular is very unique, both in shape and location. Specifically, it abuts single-family homes to the east and northeast, and then the shape of the property in particular, and it'll become more of a, not to put the cart before the horse, it'll become more of a question for the next departure with 2 buildings for the general occupancy building. But the general shape of the building presented some challenges as far as fitting an ample amount of parking while also keeping the development walkable as well. As far as the pitched roof, we heard loud and clear at the rezoning hearing that neighboring residents did not want to see a towering development on the property, but yet there is a desire for density and to bring more units to the neighborhood. So we felt that going 3 stories and showing a pitched roof kind of captured the single-family nature of the immediate area. And so that's why we chose to go with that design, both so that it's not overly, not a oversized building, and it also, pitched roof has a softer feel to it. So those are the reasons behind the requested departures, and happy to address any questions you may have.
Okay. Commissioners, questions? Guess he did a good presentation. Nobody has any questions. You can sit down. Thank you. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this subject, either here or at home?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Oh, no, she's not outside.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, what's your pleasure, commissioners?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I move that the request for the departures listed in the staff report development at 134, 148, 158, 168, 174 Allen Avenue be recommended for approval. Is that how that's supposed to read?
It should be approved.
Okay, should be approved.
Oh, support.
Okay, moved by Joe Montgomery Keese and seconded by Commissioner Hood. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Montgomery Keith,
Yes.
Joni Blake,
Yes.
Tim McCloskey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's funny because the other day I was
Okay, motion passes.
couldn't see the
I wonder what everybody's here for. Nobody's made any comments yet. Next we go to hearing case 2023-28, and before we start, it's like
29.
Yeah, it's actually 29.
We got one more of these.
20. Oh God.
Yes.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Case 29.
This is a request for departures from the form-based code section of the zoning ordinance for a new development at 139, 159, 161, and 185 J Street and 923 J Street by Spire Development. These properties were recently rezoned to form-based code in anticipation of the project. The properties aren't combined yet, but they will be upon approval. It's 1.15 acres. The project includes 2 separate affordable apartment buildings, which will be also low-income housing tax credit buildings. Building A is a 3-story, 26-unit affordable apartment building, and Building B is a 3-story, 24-unit affordable apartment building. Again, we worked with the developer on making some modifications. They were able to do this very well. The three departures they're asking for is, again, with the building having a flat roof and not having the cornice expression line at the roof line, and also that the main entrance, they did not pick a building frontage, and they do not have the traditional entrances along the frontage street, which the form-based code really is one of the more important aspects of the code. However, this development is very unique in how we are able to lay this building out. Able to achieve this type of density is only possible by facing the building like this in north-south. Also, what it's going to do is it's going to give all of the apartment units on the east side there a view of that wildlife corridor. So that's really going to be a big benefit for these apartments. So it takes a little bit of the appearance off of the frontage street, but we already are getting that with the two other streets. And this really is a minor street on J Street, so we believe that that's a good trade-off, is being able to give away a little bit of that accessibility on the street frontage, and in turn rotating that building so we get those good views.
Okay. Questions? Commissioners? No questions? Could the developer please come to the podium? Give us your name and address again.
Hello, Sean McMickle, 330 West Spring Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Yeah, these requests go hand in hand with the previous requests. We felt that this was the best way to lay out the parcel, given its unique shape and location. Mike had mentioned that the building that is not fronting Allen Avenue will have a view of the green space, which is something we were hoping to capture. And again, we felt it was best to try and split the project into two buildings to have a more residential feel rather than an institutional feel. So.
Okay. Any questions for the developer? Commissioners? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience, either here or on our TV audience, that wishes to speak to this item?
Move to close the public hearing.
Support.
Been moved and supported to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, the hearing is closed. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
I move that departure from the form-based code section on the zoning ordinance for a new development at 139, 159, 161, 185 J Street and 923 J Street by Spire Development Incorporated be approved.
Support.
Ooh, lots of support.
Yeah.
Moved by Commissioner Johnson and supported by
Jill.
Commissioner Doyle.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, just a comment before we go to vote.
Yes, sir.
One of which is, again, thanks to our planning manager, Mr. Franzik, as well as his team on working with the developer to get this project moving forward and bring it to us, and being responsive to the community's input that's been heard, as well as making this pedestrian oriented and at pedestrian scale, including the green spaces and orientating towards the green spaces and having that play area in the gazebo. It's a nice development. So I just want to give thanks to the developer and our staff for working on this. And this is one of 6 LIHTC development, which is low-income housing tax credit developments that are moving forward right now in our city. Our staff's been working very hard and diligently on these projects to bring on that affordability and the housing options that's very much needed in our city. Our recent housing needs assessment has shown that we need 3,000 more housing units across the price spectrum within the next 5 years, and this is these 6 projects would really move us a long way towards that. But the thing that I just wanted to make sure that we're all keeping in mind, and anybody at home, is that this is a very highly competitive process to get those tax credits. They are federal tax credits passed through the state. It's a highly competitive process. It's no guarantee that all 6 projects are going to get them and move forward. So there's a chance that some of these projects will not move forward. Because I think we have sometimes we get excited about new projects and they don't happen and people get deflated and disappointed. So I just want to make sure we're aware that not all 6 projects may happen this cycle, this year. But I do just want to give thanks to the developers and to our staff for moving this forward. And you all can help. If you care about affordability and housing in our community, you all can help by lobbying our state, advocating to our state elected officials, state representatives, state senator, and all of our, governor and everyone else for these projects, advocate for these projects and securing these tax credits, as well as advocating to our federal elected officials on making more resources available for communities like ours to advance affordability and attainability and housing options here in Muskegon. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Eric Hood,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
We didn't do this one, did we?
Joni Blake,
Yes.
Jill Montgomery Keith,
Yes.
Jim McCloskey,
Yes.
Yes,
motion passed.
motion passes. Okay, now we're going to 27. Case 2023-27.
This is a request for preliminary and final PUD approval at 2800 and 2850 Lakeshore Drive by Parkland Acquisition 6 LLC. The developer will be giving a presentation, so I'll let him handle the meat and potatoes of the discussion on that, and we can answer any questions you have after that. I just want to go a little bit over the PUD process. There's a preliminary PUD vote and which is just the Planning Commission votes for, and then there will be a recommendation on the final PUD. For this conversation, it's essentially the same plan. So you're going to be voting on the same plan for preliminary and final, which is very common. We've done that in the past several times. I just want to go a little bit over the standards for approval. You'll see in the staff packet that there are 7 standards for approval of a PUD from our zoning ordinance, and that is what we are to base our decisions on. Our intent here is to base the validity of this on the land use of the plan based on these 7 standards for approval. So we will have a little exercise after the public hearing and the discussion where we will go over staff's answers to these questions, and then we will individually have our legal counsel ask the planning commissioners individually their explanation on these 7 standards as well. Staff is in support of this PUD. There were 5 conditions in the staff report. We have increased that to 10 conditions to place on the final PUD approval. So we have that in a handout. If you have that, we also have that in the packet where we will bring that up. So with that being said, again, we are to review this on the 7 standards for a PUD approval. I know there's been a lot of talk about different aspects of the plan. I do want to mention that we are not the only agency that's going to be reviewing these plans. There are other agencies as well. Another one being Eagle from the State Department, which reviews the environmental contaminations and what needs to be done to mitigate those. So there are different boards that are going to be reviewing this plan as well.
I don't think we got the.
We didn't get the supplemental.
I think there's a handout. I accidentally stapled some too. Yes.
Oh.
Oh, it didn't make its way down. Like, I haven't received it.
This mega staple.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Now, I just want to make sure that I'm correct in saying this. What we're doing tonight has nothing to do with the contaminants on the site. That's beyond our prerogative. That's the state that will be dealing with that. So we're not going to tell you not to make any comments about pollution on the site, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, and it shouldn't be used to take up a lot of time tonight because it's nothing to do with what we're doing. Remember, it's 3-minute limit on talking.
Just want to alert you before we get public comment underway and phone number. I received notice that the phone number is not working. It's just ringing and there's no voicemail being set up. So,
I don't think there is a voicemail set up, but I won't answer it unless it's the public comment period, and I've been directed to do so. So I won't interrupt you guys to answer the phone.
okay. So I just want to make sure, particularly at this point, that we are very conscientious about receiving phone-in comments on this.
It's ringing.
Okay.
Would you like to answer it?
Well, no, I just want to make sure. I got to note that. Okay, it's working. That's good. I just want to get that resolved that it is working.
Please, if you're calling from home, please wait till we have the public comment hearing to make your phone call. Your phone call won't be answered if you're calling during any other time. Only during public discussion will we be answering the phone to take your comments.
And just to caveat, it takes a moment, like a minute or two before we say phone for it to show up on Facebook that we're taking phone calls.
Okay. Be patient with us. We're using outdated technology. So be patient and call at the right time, and eventually you'll get answered. Okay. Where are we?
Public hearing.
Public hearing. Okay, no questions for staff. Would the developer like to talk about this project?
Sorry. Here's the rest.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Yes, we would like to talk about the project, and we've also prepared a...
Name and address, sir, please.
It's John Rooks, Parkland Properties, 75 West Walton.
Thank you.
Muskegon, across the street. The PowerPoint is going to be operated by us from this computer, if that's okay. And we'll try to move through it quickly. But it is a big property, and there is a significant variety of products at the property. So I'll do a very brief version of what I did at the public engagement. As I stated, I'm John Rooks. I'm the founder and owner of Parkland Properties. And to my right and your left is Roy Sharon, the Director of Operations of Real Estate. And just beyond him is our key contact at Naderveld, which is an engineering firm that worked on the site plan and has been working on it for 3 months. And then behind these guys are our environmental consultants from Environmental Resource Group in case any questions come up, even though that's not what this meeting's about. So, wanted to start with the property timeline real quickly, just to inform the crowd that might not be familiar with the property if they're new to the area. It was opened in 1899 and operated until 2009 as a paper mill operation. It was purchased by a demolition company in 2011, and their intention was to repurpose the property into an industrial storage or scrapyard. Fast forward to 2016, 5 years later, a group of business people that call themselves Pure Muskegon decided to collect their funds together and create an effort to avoid seeing the property turned into a scrapyard. And if that happened, it would have been, in their opinion, a bad thing for the community, and it could have also been a ship-breaking location. And they just saw an urgent need to put their funds together and try to find a way to make this instead a repurposed property into residential and mixed use. So the pictures tell the whole story. This is a large site. It's 122 acres. You can see what it used to look like when it was in operation. It wasn't pretty, but it was in a pretty area, and there's lots of pretty stuff around it, including the lake, Lake Michigan, a golf course, and a very nice neighborhood of residential. The buildings were large, they were tall, they polluted a lot, and they polluted the ground, they polluted the air, and they were unsightly. They eventually came down when mulching took them down. And today, in 2023, this is what it looks like. This is an aerial, and it shows what it looks like from the aerial. It's not as pretty as it was in the last photo. There's testing basins. There's a lot of different work going on to try to clean up the property. It's zoned for industrial still. If you go to the next one, because of the condition of the property, it's not allowed to be stepped on by the general public. Eagle has a restriction. There has to be a fence around it. So the red line fences off the property from the public. It's been inaccessible anywhere on the waterfront for over 100 years. Nobody has access to this property. When Pure Muskegon bought it, their intent was to get it ready for residential, get it ready for mixed use, get it ready for a reuse. And they worked with the state, and they had many meetings with the state. And they wanted to remove a restrictive covenant that the paper mill had received or put on the property to not allow environmental testing and redevelopment. And these guys, this group, these ladies and gentlemen that are thinking about the future of Muskegon, were able to negotiate to remove the restrictive covenant, to allow testing and allow non-industrial uses, and pave the way to avoid the risk of having a scrapyard. So they did that, and it took many years, and it took patient capital. They weren't looking to make a profit. They were looking to repurpose this property. And they began searching for real estate development firms or investors that would partner with real estate development firms. Some of the wealthiest families in the state of Michigan looked at this property. Eventually, they selected Parkland Properties in the summer of 2023. And for the last 4 months, we've been working on our site plan that you're looking at tonight. And it's gone through many iterations as we've gone through the process of public engagement, meeting with mayors and meeting with commissioners and meeting with staff, most importantly, who have some really capable people on the city staff. So again, back to July when we signed up to buy this property, we'd started with environmental and soil testing, zoning research, and market research. And since then, in collaboration with Pure Muskegon and GMED, an organization we all know here in Muskegon, and the city, over $1 million in improvements and research are underway at this site. They've removed the railroad. It's almost done. The filling of the test basins, that's almost done. The fences have been repaired. The scrub tree removal. That's all been done by others. What we've done is we've spent more money to do more environmental, more soil, and more water testing. We measured the depths all around the property with a barometric survey. We did the testing to make sure that every component of the property has been tested for every aspect of the property. The public engagement in the current day started on September 28. There were over 200 people. It was a 2-hour session. It was held in a huge ballroom. This is a fraction of the presentation I made there. But I wanted to give you as much as I could in the short amount of time I'm given. We want to close on the property in 2023 as soon as possible. We want to work with our consultants and the local and state and the federal partners to commence cleanup during 2024. We don't want to sit on this property. It's not getting any cleaner by just sitting there. We want to start working on it in 2024. So we're seeking tonight PUD approval from the Planning Commission, and 12 days later we'll be at the City Council asking for the same thing. And after that, we want to spend millions of dollars. And before that, we're not comfortable spending millions of dollars, and we're really not comfortable closing. So once we start, though, we're going to have incredible carrying costs, engineering costs, cleanup costs. And partly, why is that? Why is this site so expensive? It's not only expensive because it's contaminated. It's expensive because it's huge. It's a huge site, and developers typically make their money in the last 10% of the project being complete. So we want to get started and move through the process of completing this project. We've got a new site plan. You haven't seen it before we submitted it to you, or unless you're at the public engagement. We are in a situation where we're balancing expectations from another site plan that had been developed by the owners today when they hired the company from Miami called DPZ, and then they had a public charrette to try to figure out exactly what's perfect for this site, and they came up with some really cool plans. The cleanup and development costs have been researched since that design charrette occurred, and they've learned a lot about the complexities with fill and the buildability in certain areas. There's underground piling where the paper mill used to be. We're told there's over 2,000 of them 9 feet under the ground. There's going to be areas that have lime, where there's lime in the ground, and we'll need to use special building materials that are more expensive that prevent corrosion on the pipes that are underground. There's mitigation and capping of contaminants. We're told we might need to bring in as much as 80,000 yards of clean sand. There's safe ventilation of methane and hydrogen sulfide vapors, and that can be done. It's done every day. It's done all over the lakeshore, all over West Michigan, all over the entire state. And then there's PFAS due care obligations. We've dealt with each one of these things before. So we created a conceptual plan intended to create, or excuse me, I want to talk about the DPZ charrette. We have a plan that is what we want, and we're complete with a plan. But the reason we're talking about the DPZ charrette is some people bring that up when they see that we don't have channels and extra lakes and extra open water space. And that conceptual plan was created by the former owners, and it was intended to create interest in the property, and it was done before all the testing was done, and it was for redevelopment and to show what it could be, and it was intended to create a national attraction of buyers and developers that would potentially come to Muskegon and develop this. What we've learned now, because all of the testing is done, that and the market's a little different here. We're not in Miami. We're not in Florida. The DPZ plan had a lot of really large houses. This plan didn't really focus on the West Michigan housing market demands, and there was contaminants that prevent the new water that they want in the surface, the channels and the different lakes. And because of the cost of construction, building on fill and lime, and dealing with the underground piling, the DPZ plan just didn't work for us, even though we looked strongly at it. If you look at the plan, and again, I'm talking about this just because some people have asked us, is it possible you could do this plan? And we can't, because you can see the top half is the one with channels. The bottom half extends the basins into a much larger area than they are now. And that exacerbates the PFAS, it exacerbates other ground contaminants and puts it in the lake. And it's just not something Eagle will allow. We've asked them about it. We've asked our consultants. We just wanted to verify so we could say that we verified it, and we can't do this extra water surface area. So we went past the DPZ plan and started from scratch. The next slide shows the fill. What's interesting about this property is that over half of it, almost 2/3 to 3/4 of it, is fill. It's infilled over the last century. It doesn't mean you can't build on it. Terrace Point Landing is all fill. But what it does mean is that a large portion of the site requires piling to support building structures because of the fill. So anywhere you see red shading on that slide, we're going to have to use piling. Piling are expensive. It's $2,000 to $2,500 per piling. We need 20 to 30 per house. So it's going to make it expensive. There's PFAS in the groundwater on site. Now, there hasn't been testing recently that has found any detectable levels of PFAS in Muskegon Lake from the site, but we are working with Eagle to develop a plan to deal with the PFAS. We know one thing for sure. Anytime we dewater, we have PFAS to deal with. And we know that when we put sewer pipes in, we will have a lot of dewatering because of the length of the streets and the amount of fall for gravity that you need in a sewer pipe. So we're going to be dewatering while we put in sewer pipes under the roads. We also know that our basements, which is the only place we're doing basements is on the shoreline, will not require dewatering. Our elevations are fine for not having to dewatering when we dig for basements or foundations. There is a large portion of the site that are going to require a lot of clean fill, the 80,000 yards I talked about as a cap. And then underground, we have special building materials to prevent skin irritation and blindness from lime. But we're going to handle all that. We've done it before. The large area of the site that is covered by the footprint of the former paper mill has the pilings that I referred to earlier that are underground, 9 feet under the current surface. That developed our current project direction and is going to ultimately explain why we came up with the plan that we put in front of you tonight. The project direction is based on a lot of facts, and the facts are there's a housing crisis. It's been talked about earlier tonight with the other development proposals. 3,000 to 3,500 houses needed just in the city. That doesn't include the county's needs. And we can bring people from the Ottawa County, Muskegon County. People are going to want to live here, and they'll drive a half hour to work if they have to. The issues with affordability cause issues with how you design a project. We know what the demands in that study say about not just going after luxury housing. We want to appeal to attainable, missing middle workforce housing in a large way. And we want to provide the housing supply that's meaningful to assist with the missing housing supply. Parkland wants to build projects that have marketable products, but needed products. The myriad of products and price points will be for all walks of life. And we've learned by doing projects that have the wide variety of price points under the same roof in buildings in Grand Rapids, where young professionals or even students live next to philanthropists and develop relationships even though there's a 50-year age gap. Good relationships and friendships that last lifetimes. The idea we have is part of the project will have attainable apartments under $1,000 a month. Some of the project in those same units, same buildings will have 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom units. There will be a large number of attainable condos that will be for sale product with waterfront views that will be anywhere from $200,000 to $350,000. There will be over 150 waterfront home sites that range from $150,000 to $250,000 for 1,800 to 5,000 square foot homes. Now I just got to stop here and tell you that there's nothing like that right now on Spring Lake, on Kalamazoo River, Kalamazoo Lake, on Macatawa. There's nothing like that even on Muskegon Lake or even on White Lake. This is a large number of affordable home sites with lifestyle directly on the water, with incredible views looking straight at Muskegon State Park, with blowout dunes and trees that are mature that will never be torn down, straight at the sunset above it. On top of that, there's a limited number, in this case only 11. I'll call them large waterfront home sites, targeted at executives that we are trying to attract to this community to live here if they're recruited by a huge company to work here. We don't want those people doing what they do today, which is live on Spring Lake and then work in Muskegon. These houses can be 5,000 to 10,000 square foot houses. You'll drive in with your boat, turn right on the channel, and you'll be staring right at this amazing development with very impressive appearance. The current project direction is designed by the demands of the market, but also the demands of the ground. The ground says you can't have any additional surface water like canals, lakes, or ponds that could disturb contaminated groundwater. We need shallow structures, which gives us the opportunity to do the smaller homes where we can minimize the disturbance of contaminated groundwater and minimize dewatering. And we can minimize the amount of piling because we know we're going to have to use piling. There's certain areas where we're going to be able to do monolithic slab. There's certain areas we'll be able to do spread footings, but a big majority of the waterfront has the piling. And then we have special materials that we have to use in certain areas. The stormwater management system comes up, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we have a sustainable management system of stormwater, including natural vegetation, and we have an engineering firm that will work on this far more thoroughly than we already have. But what we do know is charging the underground groundwater system in with rainwater constantly pushes that water through the property into the lake. And with the proper stormwater system, we're sending the water not through the ground, but through our stormwater system and discharging before it goes through the ground. And that way it doesn't come in contact with the residual contaminants that may be in the ground. So we're excited about that, because leaving this property the way it is today does nothing to make it cleaner. Developing it will make it cleaner. We can go through this really quickly because most of the misleading and false statements that you've heard on the Facebook or the social media has been related to environment. But just real quick, there's no new environmental information that's come out in the last month about this property. It's been there for 5 years or longer. It's absolutely all known information, and there should be no fear to erode confidence in the seller, Pure Muskegon, or Parkland as the buyer. We've done projects for 30 years. We've been here for 15 years. We've done projects like this, not this large, because there isn't really any other property this large. But you all know Terrace Point Landing, and then in addition, we've researched it for 4 months, and we've got 4 credible environmental research firms that have provided statements that we've just handed out to you tonight, refuting any of the alleged claims about some surprise contamination on the site. It's a known situation. This property's been in the spotlight for over 10 years. No surprises. Another misleading false statement is that there's no jobs are going to be created from this property. There will be 300 to 500 construction jobs for 6 years, and over 600 jobs long-term with 40 retail outlets, from the marina, the restaurants, the snow plowing, the maintenance, the yards, the leasing, the sales, the resales, and all the employees of those retail outlets. Just real quick, the ERG, or the Grand Valley State University letter, is just to tell you, at the bottom you can see it says, in all cases there is no detection of any PFAS chemicals at either site in the water column of Muskegon Lake. This is from water samples collected by a community foundation paid for the Grand Valley State University to do this. Here's one from BAR, one of the nationally recognized environmental firms. It says, we are of the opinion that the 2400 Lakeshore Drive property is well suited for redevelopment. Redevelopment of this property can safely be accomplished in a manner that is consistent with applicable environmental law and application. And then one from ERG. These guys are sitting here. They wrote the letter. The known contamination at the site is typical for the type of industry that was formerly present on the property. And it goes on, and there's another letter from Fishbeck, who worked on the property for the sellers, and says this is a customary approach and one that Fishbeck applies to similar brownfield redevelopments, and we look forward to seeing this take place at Windward Point. So there's a lot of positivity from the environmental standpoint, because it's only going to get better, and that's what we're excited about with this project, because it's like Muskegon, it only gets better. The next part, let's get to the fun part. We're not there yet. The fun part's not coming up. We're still talking about cleanup. You guys still want to hear about cleanup?
We like cleanup.
You do? Okay, I'll listen. I'll keep going. All right, we're almost through the cleanup, and then we can get to the site plan. So we are working in concert with the Eagle folks and the environmental consultants to create what's called a due care plan, Part 201, to allow for safe redevelopment. We're performing additional testing. We're going to have that done before we close. We won't close if something new comes up that surprises us. We're considering methods that are consistent with the state brownfield sites, including other housing developments in Muskegon. We have, we've looked at all the restrictions that are there, and we know that we need Eagle's approval for all of our methods, and we cannot, will not, and agree that we will never build without Eagle's approval. We don't have to agree to that. We just never would do it. You wouldn't be able to. Pure, Muskegon, and Parkland have been, and they've always been willing to abide by all the laws. And again, the recent testing confirmed there's not detectable levels of PFAS going into Muskegon Lake from that site, but we're going to continue to test it. Until we get the stormwater management plan in, we have to continue to test it. Leaving the site as is will not make the site clean. Redeveloping the site will make it safer. So I'll just tell you what the expectation is based that we have right now is that we'll be doing to deal with the fill is the first thing will be 80,000 yards of clean fill brought to the site to cap the contamination. It could come from the Marina Basin because it's clean sand as far as we can see from our current testing, but we're waiting for more testing. Vapor barriers will be installed under all buildings. Passive and active venting systems will be utilized to safely remove ground vapors. And these are the same methods that were used on lots of sites on Muskegon, like Grand Valley, the Terrace Point Landing Project, Harbor 31 today, many other projects. Grand Haven did it at Grand Landing, if you know where that's a huge site that the city owned. We will use the grant funds that are available that the former owners received from Eagle, which made the difference of us wanting to buy the property. The railroad and them getting those grant funds was the clincher. Without those two things I might not have been able to do, we wouldn't have wanted to buy the property. But they did that and made it attractive. And there's a rumor going around we're going to try to use those funds to build homes instead of clean up the property. That's not true. We can't. We have to use it to do the mitigation efforts like we did at Terrace Point Landing and the convention center in Harbor 31. The convention center is where we had a bunch of PFAS. It was highly complicated. That has huge foundations, and it needed tons of dewatering, so that was complicated. We even dealt with an oil well. That was a new one, and it was from the 1800s, and it wasn't the good kind of oil that you can sell. We had to deal with the ground that needed the cap at Terrace Point. We had to deal with vapor at Terrace Point. We've been in real estate development for 30 years, so we've got a proven track record. I'm trying not to be repetitive, but the bottom line is we're local, but reportedly, according to the Grand Rapids Business Journal, we're the largest real estate development firm in West Michigan. I haven't verified it, but that's what they wrote. We're capable and willing to perform this legacy project. It's the perfect time in my lifetime because I'm the most skilled, but I haven't gotten dementia yet, so. And we have more resources than we've ever had. There's a study by Grand Valley State University that the Pure Muskegon Group did, and they did a bunch of study to figure out what the impact would be, the spin-off economic impact, and it will generate millions of dollars. Now, this was based on the DPZ plan, but our plan must generate at least as much because that study said 8.2 million, and we think we'll generate more. And that's not just the project as a whole, it's every single year an economic spin-off benefit that will be reinvested in the community. So we believe, and I think Pure Muskegon believes, that our site plan continues this mission and will take this currently contaminated barren site that is as ugly as any barren site with no topography, most of the trees gone, and turn it into something beautiful. And by the way, I said something about the trees. Later you're going to hear we're going to keep the trees, and you'll hear why we are. So this plan is the site plan. So we're going to kind of, it's so big that it's kind of hard to talk about it unless we broke it down. So Rory, who's over here, had the idea of drawing lines through it and breaking it into quarters. So we'll call it west, center east, and east. So let's go to the west side. So on that side, we're proposing a marina. That needs eagle permits. We want PUD approval from you, but we can't build it without eagle permits. We need Army Corps of Engineer permits. We need to do all the testing that they require in order to get those permits. We need to build a public beach because we think that's a great amenity and we have enough frontage there. Everybody was surprised that we own that property, but these sellers were smart enough when they sold the country club, they kept this property so it would become more attractive as a development parcel, because then you have all this frontage with which you can build a marina. There's a public restaurant location. You can see that, that's number 13. That's actually set up to be a 3-story building with a restaurant, bar, outdoor entertainment, a clubhouse beneath it for the residents, and then an event center up on the top with a rooftop deck. There's an in-and-out boat storage building, which is number 10. There's townhomes, which is number 8. There's condo mansions, which I haven't described, but what those are is they look like large homes, and they're the second row of homes. And that's anything with an M in front of it is a condo mansion. And what that is a 3-story structure with a rooftop deck, typically with an elevator, a stairway, and a single entry door, and a 2-stall garage door only. So that looks like a house. It'll look like a 10,000 to 12,000 square foot house. So you walk in the main entrance, there's a lobby, and then you go to your unit inside. There's 5 units on the second floor, 5 units on the third floor, and they'll range from $200,000 to $350,000. So they'll all have balconies and they'll all have views. There's no product like that in Muskegon, and we need to price it right because we have so many units and we want velocity. That's what we did in Grand Rapids. We were the fastest selling condo project in Grand Rapids, and then we did another one, and that was the fastest selling condo project in Grand Rapids, and we ultimately still today hold the title to 60% of the condos ever developed in downtown Grand Rapids. We did that because we priced it low. We believe in price elasticity, and we priced it 10 to 15% below appraisal. Then the next category is large dwelling sites. I talked about that. That's those big ones with the 3, and then there's some single family home sites, which are the narrower ones. So we'll go through the next slide. Wait, we changed some things, didn't we, Rory? So we flipped the marina break wall. It used to go the other side. Everybody loved that. There was a person from Leah from the Watershed Council kept talking about that area where P3 is. That's where more public access needs to be. And we kept thinking about that. And then meanwhile, we figured out the one mistake we made is we had our breakwater backwards. And our environmental consultant drew it backwards, and we brought it past another environmental consultant, our marine consultant. And our marine consultant that we got a second opinion from said, hey, you got your breakwater backwards. So we fixed it, we moved it, but what it does is it provides public access way out in front of the project and gives incredible views to the Muskegon State Park and the blowout dune and the trees and the sunset. And then we expanded the amount of available transient space, 1,400 feet of transient space on that dock, and we created a designated fishing platform at the end. Now, half of that dock isn't going to be a good place to dock as a transient if it's wavy, but the inside will be nice, whether it's wavy or not. So we at least have 700 feet on a non-wavy day. And then we improved the view corridor for the public beach because no longer do we have that breakwater right in front of the public beach. Instead, you have a view corridor towards Muskegon State Park. And then we incorporated that rooftop area on the left side, top corner of the boat storage building. We're going to have a 3-level stack of marina office, bathrooms, and then second level sandwich shop or restaurant or something, and then maybe a coffee shop or another office, and then a rooftop deck. That's on the northwest corner. Now in the next slide, you'll see a little bit further into the site, you'll see more condo mansions, more of those large dwelling home sites, then there's single family home sites. A retail corridor, that comes directly off of that driveway that comes on the backside where the pool is in the country club. So there's a sloped, narrow driveway, and we just didn't know what to call this street, so we call it the Country Club Extension Street. And we put our retail on both sides of that. And I'll give credit to Rory's idea, because we first had this curved, but then when we were talking to the mayor and we took him out there, he talked about view shed. He said, you know, public access is one thing, but we've had a net gain in public access in Muskegon, but we've had a massive loss of view shed. So this is a way to preserve view shed. When you're driving down the street, or if you drive down that street or past that street, you'll have a view all the way across the lake. This is the closest point on the whole property from Lakeshore Drive to the water. It's half as far there as it is in the next street where Lincoln Street is. So this is a really important view shed area. And then at the end, where you see a 16, there's a park. And anywhere you see a 16, there's a park. Anything that's yellow is a park. And those parks are all open to the public. I'll give credit to the parklets at the end of any street to Jake, because he said, why don't you just have those streets be a street end instead of putting a cul-de-sac there? Just have that street end become a park. And then at certain areas, you can have kayak launches, some can have fishing platforms, some can be just for view or picnicking. And we said yes. And then if you look at the larger buildings, those are 48-unit apartment, condo, or senior housing buildings. Senior housing is something we don't know how to do. We could probably learn, but we do know how to do everything else because we've done a lot of all the other categories, whether it's condos or apartments or marina or in-out service. We have businesses that do all of those things, but we haven't done senior housing, so we might try to find another developer to take some of the land where the senior housing could be developed and do that. I'd like to live there someday. The other adjustments we made were we adjust the spacing and design of the multifamily buildings to align with neighborhood streets. So we just did that. We added streets. We met with Jamie and Jake, or Jamie and Mike, Jamie Pesh and Mike Franzak, and they came up with this complex set of lines throughout the property, and they were worried I was going to stand up and walk out. But I listened, and honestly, every single thing they said, we did, because it was a really great idea to create pedestrian and bike connectivity throughout the property. So a lot of those little red paths are all designed for pedestrians or bikes, and some of them are mulch or gravel, and they're kind of, you can see where you can weave through M16 and M15 and wander through and go through the entire property. We also expanded the accessibility of the bike trail and sidewalk to the retail corridors. There was a lot of talk about that at the public engagement, and you can see that we actually brought a full-size bike path all the way to P5, which is the waterfront park that creates the view shed and another park. And then we clustered the retail buildings together to create a walkable and lively community area, which is the brown buildings, which are M4, 3, 1, and 2, because that's connected to Lakeshore. The professionals have all told us we want to have the retail close to Lakeshore so that people see it and want to drive in and enjoy it. And then once you're there, it's not a long distance to get to the restaurant, but we wanted the restaurant on the water. Another update was the last minute negotiation with the mayor and Jake that I had yesterday, which means it's not on the site plan, but it's a separate page. And those guys said, look, we've been really, really interested in having more directly on Muskegon Lake, and is there any opportunity? So what we did is we created parklets that are, one's 49 feet wide, 4,600 square feet, another one's 95 feet wide and 4,070 square feet. But those parklets are taking away some of the common area that we were going to preserve for lot owners and condo owners, because we wanted one area where the general public couldn't go and peek over the edge of the swimming pool, and there was an area of quietness where people could just go and know that it's only condo or site owners, and there's enough space there to do that, so we did that. Now the other thing we didn't want to do before was we didn't want to give part of this away because we thought we might be able to connect this pond to the lake. The one area where we would be able to have some land come out to create more waterfront would be this area. The land isn't contaminated, it's not the problem, but we're still testing the pond. That was called the surge basin back when the paper mill operated, and they pumped water in there, and who knows what was in the water. So we want to make sure that's safe. If we can't open it up, we're going to leave it closed and it will look like this. Option B, though, is we can open it up and then we can have either a drawbridge or a high bridge to be able to keep the connectivity between the development so you could walk through that park area and walk past the pond or over the pond. And so we listened and said yes. Now that bridge would need a permit and it's going to be complicated, but we think the likelihood is that we can't open it anyway. Most likely it will look like option A, if you can go back to that, Rory. But in the event that we could open it up, there's a plan on how to do that, and it's pretty cool. The next slide is a Center East, which has a lot of the future senior housing or apartments. It also has the corridor that used to be curved, and the mayor asked if we could do the same straight shot to the lake so that when you're coming down Lincoln, which has 2 lanes heading towards this development when you're coming down the hill, and even when you're at the top of the hill, you'll be able to look straight down that view shed. And we stuck a park at P9 so there's no houses in the way of your development, of your view. So I was out there today, and there's a white house, a great big white house in North Muskegon that you stare right at. And I always see that when I'm out at P9 when I'm in the truck. Or if I'm at the place where the future roundabout could go on Lakeshore, you can see straight down that line. And that was a change we made when we were with the mayor. But then the next day the mayor called and he said he kept thinking about all those huge trees we were going by, and he said, can we preserve those mature trees? Some of them you can't even really get your arms around, they're so big. And we thought about it, and we thought that just adds value to everything that's not there. We're going to have to give up 48 units times 2, so 96 units. Hemmed and hawed for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then I said yes again. And so we put the park in there for a pathway trail area where you could walk. Haven't decided if it should be for biking and walking, but we know that it's a great place to bring dogs on leashes. But then in addition, if you look at P10, we created that park as the unleashed dog park. That's public. All of this is public. Anybody can go there. It's great for the neighborhood, and it's great for the residents that live here. It's great for the surrounding area. You could spend all day here and go to 10, 11, 12 different parks. Then you look at 23, there's a public playground, and that's open to the public. That came up from the public engagement because someone asked me when I described all the people that would live here, because I talked about empty nesters, divorcees, entry-level buyers, retirees. I talked about people that would buy these as second homes, rent as second homes, and people that have live-work environments. We can accommodate all that. Someone raised their hand and they said, well, what about kids? And I said, absolutely, great place to have kids. There's multiple pools, there's beaches, there's places to have your boat. It's a great place for family. And she's like, why don't you have a playground then? So we put a playground in. There's a clubhouse next to that with tennis courts and another pool. That's not public. That's for the residents of the apartments or the senior housing. Go to the next one. That's a little bigger. So another thing that came up yesterday was this creative idea that I agreed to. I decided I would be willing to provide a 2-year discounted purchase option to the city for up to 10 lots adjacent to the planned Lincoln Street extension to expand the public areas on the Muskegon Lake. And we discussed that back and forth. It was about a 3-hour meeting, and we came up with those those new amenities by the pond. And this idea, and you're going to see another one in the next slide, but we would work in concert with the city to try to find the expansion. The next one is the far east. The far east butts up against DNR owned property. So we would have to get the permission from the DNR people, but we could build a boardwalk, and that would be P13, and then a big parking lot and a bunch of park area were P14. So the P13 boardwalk would go over the wetlands and then beyond the wetlands, and could be a great place to fish. But then P12 is a great place to launch a kayak. It's also a great place to fish. But then at some point, we're going to see a change on P12 where we added another boardwalk that goes out past the front of the property and allows you to see Muskegon State Park. We also adjusted the spacing and design of the multifamily buildings along Lakeshore Drive to align with neighborhood streets. And then we changed the road design to encourage slower car traffic and bike-friendly neighborhoods. So someone on a bike should be able to drive anywhere they want on this property, and it's all open to the public. There's also sidewalks on every street. And then we changed the vegetation to encourage more native species and natural vegetation and the green space between home sites and the roadway. Here's the one I was talking about. That's the new P12 boardwalk and fishing platform at the northeast corner of the property that would look straight across to North Muskegon and Muskegon State Park. That was yesterday's negotiation. So people want to know what this retail corridor is going to look like across from what I refer to as the Country Club Road extension that goes to the old coal basin. And these are some of the designs that we came up with. And it seems like one that I like the best. I don't know if you skipped it. No, we'll find it. Yeah. So that's okay, because there's a really good image of the retail on both sides of the street, and then there'd be small apartments upstairs, and they could be live-work apartments. So the retail corridor would have 20 to 40 business tenants. There'd be 43,000 to 95,000 square feet of available space based on demand, and that's because there's an expansion area where we can take the garage areas of apartments and convert them to more retail immediately along Lakeshore Drive, just east of the Country Club extension corridor. But we want restaurants, bars, distilleries, breweries, fitness centers, daycare, pet care, veterinarians, hair salon and spa, massage therapy, coffee shop, all the stuff we promoted at Shaw, and we're going to do at Shaw Walker, we want there. It's an amenity that pays rent to us. We give them a discount if we have to, but we kind of hand pick our tenants like we did at Boardwalk, which is the building we have in Grand Rapids that's about 400,000 square feet that many people say it's like living on a cruise ship. And it's got all these same amenities. So here's the big houses. These are the ones that there's only 11 of, but they're examples of what the larger homes would look like. And you go to the next slide. They fit on those lots really well, the large lots. But the majority of the houses are going to be smaller, more attainable. These are townhomes. These were built by one of our local developers, but on a property I owned in Grand Haven that I sold them next to the Wharf Marina. So these are Duzendang homes, and these are 3 levels, and they have 2 to 3 bedrooms, and they're rear entry. They have a garage in the back, no entry in the back, and then they have a front entry on the opposite side. And they all have balconies, and they're good looking, and they sold fast. And then these condo mansions I described earlier, there's a variety of inspiration photos that Rory's going to go through. I like this one a lot because it has the rooftop deck that could be common, and then you just kind of get a feeling for how it looks like a house, but it's really 5 condos per floor. Some of them they're not all going to be the same. This project's so large, we can have an ultra modern section, we can have a Michigan cottage section, and we can have more of a classic section. And then just like that, we can do the same thing with our apartments. The longer, larger buildings would be inspired by these types of images, and they would have retail on the first floor or garages on the first floor. And then the 2,000 to 5,000 square foot waterfront homes that are on the non-staggered lots, and I'll get into that in a minute, this is similar to what could go there. But then on the staggered lots, and when I say that, on the narrow lots that are 200 feet long, the houses can be 24 feet apart, and the houses stagger like this. And so there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. So they're not next to each other. So it creates view corridors between the houses like that. And the garages, if you've been to Terrace Point Landing, one thing we could have done better is we could have used more vegetation and more islands between driveways. And this was inspired by Jamie Pesh, our planner, or one of our, what's the title of Jamie? City planner. What's your title then?
Planning director.
Planning director, okay. So these guys came up with this from images that they searched for, and this is the landscape enhancement plan for high density. So our proposal is subject to landscape approval because they're gonna wanna know. And then here's our retail corridor we were looking for, where it shows it on both sides. So there'd be parking, just parallel parking. But this is a cool photo because it shows the lake in the background, which is what you'd see. You'd be able to see all the way to the other side of the lake, looking down our retail corridor as you're walking around shopping. And then the next one. This is our amenity summary. It gives you the very nuts and bolts and specifics of the amenities. You could study it if you like to, but it's approximately 12% of our water land frontage. It's all net gain. It's not swapped with access or amenity use that the city owns. There's no swapping and trading going on. This is just a pure net gain. This is property that has never been accessible for 100 years that will now have 12% of its frontage accessible to the general public, almost 1,000 feet. We're going to have about $4,000 a lineal foot into the cost of acquisition, which is around $2,000 a foot. It's no secret. And we've got the cost of doing roads. We've got the cost of running cable. We've got the cost of running electric. We've got a cost of building a seawall for $600 a square foot, or lineal foot. So you add all that up, and it's over $4,000 a lineal foot. So we're at about $4 million of property that's becoming waterfront access, plus the cost of building all the other amenities on top of it. So there's about 6 acres. These are the breakdown of this is the beach, 180 feet of shoreline. This is the part that surrounds the clubhouse, and a portion of it will be available to the public where the building isn't built. This is the 69 feet on one of the parklets. This is where a fishing pier goes. There's 4 or 5 fishing piers. This has nothing on it because this is the view corridor thing at the end of the Country Club Extension Road. And then this is another parklet that would have fishing. This is another one that is on the Coal Basin that would have fishing. That's got 67 feet of shoreline. And then this one is, this is one of the ones we modified because we moved it out to Muskegon Lake from the pond. P8 and P9 got moved out to the lake, so we've already talked about those. Nope, P7 and P8 got moved. P9 is the one that's at the end of the Lincoln Street extension. And just so you know, the house on P9 would be on the upper left of P9 and the lower right of P9, so you'd see through the front and the back half of the lots to look across the lake. And then around P9 are those lots that are under option agreement. P10, help me out, Rory, where's P10? Oh, this is the forest. No, this is the this is the dog park that's fenced in. And then this is the forest. This is 111,000 square feet, so a little under 3 acres. And then that would be an inspiration for some of the pathways through the mature wooded park. Those trees are way smaller than ours. And then pollinator garden, I've never heard of it, but Jamie told me to do it, so we put this in. Yes. Public playground, that was the result of public engagement. And then we've got kayak launches at 2 locations so far. There could be more. And then this is the far end to the east of the property where we have that boardwalk that goes over the wetlands and eventually out on top of the surface area of Muskegon Lake. And then this kind of shows the connectivity. Right now, the bike trail does not go through our property. We're fine with it going through our property all the way up to the last street before the country club extension, at which point it crosses already, and then it puts it on the other side of the street and gets you all the way to Pierre Marquez Park. That's a picture of the property today, and that's the end of our slideshow, and we're available for questions, and sorry if I took too long. But believe it or not, it was shorter than the one at the public engagement.
John, on your parks, I didn't see any parking.
The
People coming in from the outside, are they going to be able to park their car to use these parks?
every single one of them has parking, so we're going to try to blow that up for you. I shouldn't have said every single one. Go back to the big site plan, Rory.
Oh, okay.
Just go back to the one that has the yellow on it. Because some of those diagrams just diagram the land and they don't show the parking. So if you look at P14, for example, you'll see a parking lot there. I can't count how many parking spots there are, but there is a parking lot there. And then if you look at P12, you'll see 6 or 7 spots right there on P12.
Okay.
If you look at P11 to the left, there's a large section of parking lot that goes into that space, and it's got parking spots lined up on the south side of it. And then if you go to the left sheet, there's parking spots to the bottom of P11 and the bottom of P10. So even if you're on one side or the other, there's parking for both. There is no parking for P9, but we didn't want to do that because we wanted people to just be able to see through it, and we didn't want cars parked in front of it to ruin your view shed. So that was on purpose, but we could put car parking there, but we thought it was better to just have it be flat green space to accomplish the goal of the view shed. So that's why I said all of them, but that one doesn't unless you figure that you're walking from P10's parking spots to go to the P9 park. And then if you keep going to the next slide, center west. Okay. Does that answer it? Okay.
Yeah. How close is the city regarding these lots?
Being able to purchase them, you mean?
Yeah.
It's the 2-year discount purchase option, so we would be able to start looking at how to plan for that over our next couple fiscal years. I do think it's something that we would be able to accommodate. It is important. It is something that we've heard from the public that we want to be able to do, to have that there. And given the economics of the development, we want to make sure that we're not being a hindrance to that. So the city purchasing would be an option. So I think the mayor had to.
If I may just add on that, we have reasonable confidence that we can pursue and obtain grants to go towards purchasing, or at least defraying the cost of purchasing these lots. And then I was just speaking with our city manager earlier today about pursuing additional engagement with the community about. We presume the community is very much interested in acquiring this, but engaging our community on allocation of our resources, to what extent for acquisition of this property. And then a question for you, Mr. Rooks, is we also talked about, and we've talked in the past, about the property to the east end of this, on the other side of the lagoon, right next to the Grand Trunk, that there are members of our community who are very much interested, the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership being one organization, very much interested in extending that green space and the natural area, continuing it from Grand Trunk on there. And previously you had expressed a openness to that. Of course, that would be capital raising and compensating you for that, just so that this would be part of our engagement as well with the community. I just want to confirm that you still are open to the possibility of a portion of that far eastern property being reprogrammed for open space, recreational, in concert with our community.
Yep. And part of that was to get something done now without you buying anything, adding that boardwalk at P12.
Yeah, which I very much appreciate.
That was another good idea by the mayor, not to give him too much credit. I should take credit for some of the ideas, but, but there's been a lot of good ideas from the public.
Well, you came back yesterday with that bridge, which Jonathan had mentioned before, and so I was really pleased that you came back with that, and I was really liked our manager's idea with having that bridge, the isthmus, that connection. So we have that continuous pathway and additional waterfront access and some waterfront trail. I certainly would like more waterfront trail. You know where I stand on that.
That was because I didn't want to give it up because I didn't want to I don't want to kill the idea of opening it up. But fortunately, I couldn't fall back asleep at 5 a.m. yesterday. And came
Well,
up
you
with
got
that
creative
idea.
and found a way. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I get credit for that one.
You get a credit for a lot of. I mean, you're moving this project forward.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions for the developer?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I do not want this to feel like negotiating from the dais whatsoever, but I just want to, when we talked about the purchase option that we were just talking about, are you okay with, because I didn't see the language until just now of 1 lot to the west and 9 lots to the east. Are you okay with 2 lots to the west, 8 lots to the east?
I don't
It's
care.
a small change. I just want to make sure
No.
that when we make this motion, that's incorporated correctly and you're comfortable with that.
Nope, I'm out of
Okay.
here. No.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
fine. No,
I just
kidding.
want to.
No, I'm good with it. It's
Okay.
all good.
Because then that aligns very nicely with P11, where that lot line is, and then it extends over to P10. So then it feels like a public park arc.
I actually
and-
like it better because now you're directly in front of P11 and you're a little bit more in front of P10.
Yeah.
Where you have the dog park that's unleashed.
Feels like a continuous park arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Just to clarify one point on 16, that there's nothing gonna be built on that. 'Cause I
16.
Oh,
talked
P5.
about it.
Yeah.
P6,
P5.
no,
Number 6.
number 16, P9.
P9. Okay.
P9, the area we're talking about.
P9, nothing will be built there
Right,
unless the city wants to build something there.
all right, good.
And I might as well just tell you because people might be wondering, am I deeding these properties to the city or are we going to own them and maintain them and then the public has an easement over it? I'm open to both, but the planning department doesn't want to own them. So I would be giving you an easement to use them. But in your easement language, you could put in there that you guys are in charge of what goes there. So for example, if it's just picnic tables, it's just picnic tables. If it's a gazebo, I would recommend against it because it would block the view shed.
P9 we probably would own because if we're purchasing the lots on either side of that, we'd get continuous ownership.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Rooks.
Thank you. I'm here for questions if you have any more.
Now we're gonna open this up to the public. You raise your hand, I will call on you. We'll call over here first.
We might need it.
Some of my comments are, and I was fortunately able to look at this, I think on Sunday. The mayor had kind of brought some plans. Some of my concerns are, right, I think it's 25, where you're talking about right in front of the country club property. My concerns are really the waterfront. And I don't see anything in here, and I'm not sure what parameters we've got, but I don't see anything in here that's a natural waterfront. And I would like to, if there's anything that we can do to have a more natural space between the waterfront. I do a lot of boating myself, so kayaking, there's a lot of animals that I will see that are living along there right now, particularly over there by P12 and P13, otters and whatnot in there, muskrats. But we've got I know this is kind of a community thing, but we've also got the willow tree that is right there at the corner. there. So I'm wondering whether or not we're gonna be able to keep that and some of that natural, there's very few places where we've got that natural wetland and natural walk. The other thing, I like the parks, I like that, but what I've noticed, and I'm putting on my school hat, is I'm not seeing as much of that on the eastern side. I'm not seeing playgrounds for kids and whatnot on the eastern side, or the western side, sorry. So I would like to make sure that we've got enough space for our young people and our families, and to encourage them to be. A lot of other comments, but those are kind of my two that I really wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the lady here with the purple sweater on.
My name is Eve Douglas, and I live at 2471 Lakeshore Drive, so I'm actually like right across the street from this. So I've watched it since 2000 when we bought the property. One of my concerns is you've got basically almost a solid wall along there of tall buildings, so anybody coming from the ferry up the street down has no views other than a real quick one there and a real quick one there. The other concern I have is a lot of the piping and things in these neighborhoods are old. I mean, my house was built right around 1900. And so, we don't have a lot of the support, and everything there is going to dump into a common sewer area and such things. The other thing is, it's all dumping on Lakeshore Drive, and the traffic there is horrific in the summertime. You cannot make a left turn onto Lakeshore Drive easily. And then I guess a couple more. I have to pay when that road wears out, but I'm not wearing that road out. Is one of my concerns, and it's very expensive to pay to repair those roads. And the last thing is, it seems like getting a PUD is putting the cart before the horse when there has been more than once that the community has asked that this property be changed in zoning so that it was no longer industrial. It was in, I think, the 1999, something that the community or the city commission had done up. And then there was a vote several years ago citywide, and every district in the city voted for the zoning to be changed. So whether or not Parkland Properties goes through with this, the community doesn't want this left as industrial. And it seems to me the first thing we should be doing is changing the zoning on this property. I think that's less than 3 minutes, and I'm done.
I just like to comment on one thing you said. The sewer is something I don't think you have to worry about, since Sappy used to supply half of the wastewater to our sewer system. So there's plenty of capacity there for that. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, sir, in the back.
Thank you. My name is David Rock. I'm at 1604 Peck Street. In my role as president and producer at Great Lakes Outreach Media, after a couple of years working for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, I'm frequently hired to create media that showcases Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and Superfund restored and remediated properties. This ranges from anywhere between Duluth and Buffalo and tons of communities in between. What's common in these communities is a renewed connection to the waterfront. Areas where the waterfront was once reserved for industry, laden with heavy chemicals, are becoming parks, innovative recreation and housing developments, and attracting increased interest in moving these communities to these communities due to the democratic nature of the waterfront. Something that will strike you if you visit Duluth or Sheboygan, Wisconsin, Ashtabula, Ohio, or even the Detroit River. Property closest to the waterfront is now public or community focused. This includes residential, commercial, and still a fair amount of industrial operations. All of these properties are benefiting from a public that can move freely along the waterfront. This has many benefits, which I'll discuss in a moment. Muskegon hasn't quite figured out yet what we're doing with the waterfront, and while we are attracting a variety of interested parties, a real theme or core value has yet to emerge. We have an incredible opportunity at this moment to not only do what these other communities are doing, but do it better, bigger, and set a new standard others will look to. This site design is not that. A stratified approach to housing where people with means have more access is both an old way of thinking and an entirely unnecessary for a profitable development. You can still have a premium price for properties closest to the water, but you don't own the view. And that's where this new thinking is on these matters. If you make the waterfront a community space, you encourage commingling. You encourage mental health. You increase the value of properties behind those homes. And you spread the needed return that you need to make out over much more of the property. We could talk about public access, and that's important, but in a location like this, we should probably be focused more on the community living in this space. I want them to feel like they have a sense of belonging and connected to the nature that's supposed to be a selling point of a property like this. This concept is old. The Pure Muskegon concept was old. It's a business person's idea of waterfront development. We need the Steve Jobs idea of waterfront development. More specifically, I keep sending people the Waterfront Alliance's wedge guidelines. I'm happy to talk more about that. It's like LEED certification for waterfront development. We don't have to do the creative thinking here. It's been done for us. It's climate aware, it's forward thinking, it's community focused, and with broad access to the waterfront, we're seeing more and more of this in areas around the Great Lakes. Waterfront communities are more and more exploring different approaches to these developments, and the benefits pay in spades, diversifying the appeal and value of properties both close to and away from the water, meaningful access to the entire community. The general public will probably go to the beach. I'm more concerned about the people that live there and what they do after work. Folks living in such a development can simply walk up the sidewalk and go to the park in their community if it existed there. I'm not arguing for providing access to the general public. I think we have a lot of great spaces already around Muskegon. I'm worried about the people that are there. We've got great beaches. Problem is anyone living behind that front row is also going to have to go to the beach because they're not going to have access to this. I've been on those little parklets, and my garage would fit on one, I think. We've been known for lumber, foundries, pollution, and beer tents. With a clean lake and a community starving for more community, a site this size has the greatest opportunity to be an example for towns and cities across the Great Lakes and beyond. I would promote such a place for free. I promise you. I encourage you to think differently. We need more than housing. We need more community. Thank you.
Yes, you in the back?
I'm not sure what he's looking at because I have studied this.
We have your name and
I'm
address,
sorry.
please.
Mariana Morello Van Dam. My address, 2071 Latarte Avenue.
Thank you.
Since a week ago. I have worked very hard and been very patient to be able to move into Lakeside. And I'm very proud to own my 1951 built home. It needs a lot of remodeling. I'm a single mom since my son was 5, and he's 32 now. I have maintained my middle class status by working very hard. I have looked at this plan, and I actually thought that buying Latarte Avenue, my cute little bungalow, was the end for me, in a great way, to maintain my middle class status.
Ma'am, could you please comment on the
Yep.
project?
When it comes to the project, the words I would use are, and I love this new word 'cause I've never really used this, it's attainable. There are so many homes in here for the middle class people. So that's my old term. Attainable is the new term, middle class is the old term. I am middle class, I'm proud of it. I look at all the homes that I could afford here. So I'm confused when I hear something completely opposite of what I'm seeing. I've lived in West Michigan all my life. And this is one of the first plans that I have ever seen where you can rent a studio apartment for under $1,000 or be a millionaire. And we're all together. And there are plenty of parks there for us, for everybody. We can be walking side by side and not even know our economical situation. That's the American dream. My parents are from Mexico. I'm first generation. They made me a middle-class person, and I've maintained it. It's become extremely hard in the last decade to maintain the middle-class status. I had given up hope, but I will tell you, this has renewed my hope. Muskegon is the place I've wanted to move to because you guys are so open-minded. Other word I'm going to use for John and all of you is you're visionaries. You're transparent, and you are so inclusive of everyone. So I don't know what anybody else sees on here because all I see is we already stand out. People are already talking about us because of our affordable housing. This is going to be something that will be copied over and over and over again. Thank you.
Over here.
Jamie Cross. I live in the NIMS neighborhood. I just handed my address over here, so we're all set. So I grew up in Muskegon, smelled SD Warren, way over by Mona Shores, every once in a while. By the time my daughter was 30, she called it the stinky station, so it was still smelling back then. I'm thankful it's gone. Many of you have lived here all your life. You walk over the railroad tracks, everything is fill and contamination, the whole waterfront. So yes, we want it cleaned up. I mean, it has been a scourge. 30 years of people really making an effort, and I think you all know this, $80 million of effort, lots of public funds. If we look at just the SAPI plant, $15 million for the PFAS, which I just heard Mr. Rook say, that was one of the carrots. $2 million to remove the railroad tracks. I know that was partially in SAPI. $1 to drop this, $1 million to drop the stacks. There's going to be more public funds, I am sure, to clean up the site. It needs it, and I'm thankful it's happening. So I'm also thankful for hearing the conversation tonight about more public spaces, and I'm going to advocate for even more public spaces. The amount of public funds that goes into this, the work from this community, what we've been through to get to the point we are, this community deserves this. I am also thankful for some of the green I saw, the trees, but I also want to talk about your new master plan, because in your new master plan, you have one section that's very specifically to natural resources and resiliency, and particularly focused on Muskegon Lake. So including vegetative buffers along the lakefront. I'm wondering what those setbacks would be to help protect the lake. I want to see in this plan what it is that we're going to do to protect the lake, and I spell it out before it goes through. So I think we could take some more time to do that, see some more public space. But what I'm hearing from the community from that Delta meeting and talking to people, the biggest thing is the industrial zoning. I think tonight recommendation to change that, it's in the new master plan, but also in the new master plan is really focusing on protecting Muskegon Lake. How do we do that? There's so much pervious surface going into this project with all this development. Really take some time to think about that. So I appreciate hearing some of the things I did here today about public space, seeing some of the trees in the back of the lots, and it's really unfortunate. I'm looking at what they're saying. They have to capture some of that water and then redirect it. We have other sites on Muskegon Lake that redirect water because it's so contaminated. We cannot recharge Muskegon Lake with the water that needs to be recharged because of what we've done. So we need to make sure that going forward we do the right thing. And you guys are the ones that have that control. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. You. You in a purple vest. In a
Hi, my
purple
name is
robe.
Renee Schwartz. I live at 3440 Fulton Avenue. My husband and I relocated back to, well, I'm originally from Grand Rapids. We relocated back here from California a year ago. And I just have a couple things I'd like to say, like, is there street parking for any of these houses if you have a barbecue? And do people get to come over? Are they going to have a place to park? Are there going to be restrooms at the parks? But one of the things that you see a lot in California along the coast, which is very nice, is that they have boardwalks all on the waterfront, and the houses sit behind the boardwalk, and they might have a little short fence in front of them. They're still multi-million-dollar homes, and they have great waterfront views, but there is a public boardwalk in front of them. So I was wondering if that could be incorporated anywhere on here, the whole thing or a portion, but somewhere where people could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You.
My name's Dave Medendorp, and I live on 2314 Harrison. I'm just kidding. I live directly across from where the Mills headquarters was, and I moved there 8 years ago, so I've had a front row seat to what's been happening there. Every day my wife and I go out on the porch and we drink coffee and we discuss what's happening on the paper mill property. Usually it's deer, sometimes it's an excavator, sometimes it's a couple trucks, but we've been having the same discussion for about 8 years, and whenever we have people over, they say, what are they going to build there? What are they going to do there? And it's like, I don't know who they is, but I don't think we could be in a better position to have somebody that we all know a little bit than Jonathan Rooks in Parkland. A couple of things that, you know, the thing that we don't like is four-story buildings in front of our house, but they're going to be a lot prettier buildings, a lot better maintained than the paper mill buildings. So we feel pretty blessed by the development. We'd always like more, but we think that it's going to be a great place. Lakeside's a walkable neighborhood. People walk all the time. You know, the walking is going to be directed to the new homes. They're going to be walking. People are going to walk down there. Right now, we stop at the donut shop and have a coffee. We'll have another avenue for that. I think it's going to raise the value of all the houses in Lakeside. Over today, but also over 10 years ago when we had the paper mill there. So this is a great improvement. It's really cool how I like the mansion houses the best. I think that's cool that, you know, as we could buy a condo in one of those, somewhat affordable, and live in that. As far as, in like public spaces, John is taking the biggest risk of his lifetime for him and any investors he has involved. This is a huge development. He's taking a lot of risk. And the people that move here, Ken decides to buy here, he's going to make sure that the place is safe where he's going to go. If there's a problem, if word gets around that someplace isn't safe, he's not going to be able to sell them. So he's confident that he can get to that point. Public spaces, we just got Dune Harbor in Muskegon. It is the biggest bonus that any community around here has ever gotten. You know, we got 2 lakes, we got frontage on Lake Michigan, and all kinds of hiking area. So I think we've been blessed with space. It's cool that they're providing some public space, but the whole thing's going to be public. So all of us from Lakeside, anyone, I bet you people will park their cars alongside Lakeshore Drive. They'll get out and they'll walk through there because it's beautiful. So we're excited about that. I've watched John for years. I've never done business with him, but I've watched him for years. Every development he does sells out, and the prices go up, and they get maintained, and they look beautiful. And so I don't think we can lose with what they're doing. This is the other thing was, John's got a good plan. We could all nitpick it and change it, but he's getting out his checkbook, and no one else was willing to do that for 8 years, and we're getting bored looking at the deer. So.
Yes, sir, you in the back, the black shirt on? Yep.
I'm Dan Leask. My address is 3200 Boltwood Drive in Muskegon. I want to thank the mayor and the planning commission for allowing us to speak tonight. My memories of the paper mill, the smell of hydrogen sulfide, a dense fog crossing Lakeshore Drive, the loud sounds of paper mill production 24/7, and the ugly appearance of the multiple gray buildings we all used to experience. My focus this evening is to look at the opportunities that this proposal would present to Muskegon through the following points. Number one, the land is currently zoned as industrial, as a lot of people have talked, and there were discussions around turning this property into a scrap steel processing facility. I'm so grateful this didn't happen, and I think that's the concern of all of us with it staying as industrial zoning, that the potential for that in the future. Number two, Parkland has met with the various impacted neighborhood boards and is taking our suggestions into consideration. Things such as the enhanced bike paths, senior housing options, and reorientating buildings. And Jonathan and Roy both met with us as groups and took into account some of our things, and we're seeing those materialize here. Number three, the property has not been available to the general public for over 100 years, and this proposal offers access, which was not previously available. The PUD is offering features such as parklets, kayak launches, and wildlife boardwalks. Number four, the bike trail is moved off of Lakeshore Drive and onto the Windward Point property, which will provide better and safer walking, biking, pathing for all to enjoy. So many times I've seen so many close calls along that bike path because people are really flying along Lakeshore Drive. Number five, this one we've talked about a lot. We have the need for over 3,000 homes in Muskegon over the next 5 years, and this proposal would fulfill some of that requirement. Number six, the property has been sitting vacant for some time. My concerns are if this property remains vacant for much longer, and there aren't opportunities like this one, that the property may be returned to its industrial roots, which would not be good for our community. And last, number seven, based upon the projects which Parkland has completed over the years, I believe they have the knowledge and background to successfully execute this Windward Point proposal. So these are just my thoughts, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here want to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Craig Smith, 3115 Cascade Road, Grand Rapids. I'm representing Muskegon Country Club, owners and leadership of the club. We acquired that 3 or 4 years ago, and we've been involved now with looking down on top of the Sappy property. Let me tell you, this looks 1,000 times better than what we look at right now. And I concur with many people that have spoken already. I don't know of too many people that would tackle a project this size with the knowledge and know what they're doing to make this thing work. So we are excited about being a neighbor to what's being proposed here with this development. You know, being from Grand Rapids, I'm really getting to know Muskegon. But when I think about the vibrancy it brings to the lakefront, the beautification that this is going to bring, the public activity and access, and then just the residential growth, it all sounds to me like a grand slam. So I just want to let you know we really believe and have confidence in what John's doing and are excited about seeing this as being our next door neighbor. Thank you.
Anyone else here in the audience? Yes, over here.
I'm Dennis Kirksey, 1856 Cedar Avenue, North Muskegon. Been a resident of Muskegon County all my life. I've expressed some of these comments at the Delta meeting that was held, and I also chair the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership, which I know our Public Access Committee via Leah submitted some comments for your consideration on this as well. Couple thoughts as I look at it. One, John, I know you're laying out everything. I strongly believe that if you can get a marina permit through Eagle and Army Corps, and I know that's not really this committee's concern, but I don't know what it does to your project plans if you can only get a permit for half of what's on that page. Because of the historic bulkhead line, the dredging, the wetlands issues, there's a lot of reasons why. Watershed Partnership does not endorse marina development out on public right-of-way, public domain. We prefer it to go upland. I know you have some issues with taking it upland in this case because of contamination, but number one, and I know this group is not dealing with that, but environmental issues are our biggest concern. We don't want to exacerbate any of the existing conditions. We don't want those to get into Muskegon Lake. The samples that were taken previously that Grand Valley referenced, they were minimal. There weren't a lot of them. It wasn't extensive. So on the soil bottom samples. So we just need to be careful as we approach all that. And I think you are doing your due diligence. And overall, I'm a supporter of development. I know one of the women that spoke earlier, I know it seems like a crazy idea, and David Ruck alluded to some of it. A bicycle path going out around near the shore. We're asking for a minimum of a 35-foot setback buffer green space from the shoreline's edge so that nature can interact with your development. But if you were to consider putting a public access path out there, it may impact those waterfront lots slightly, but it's going to...
Sir, you need to be addressing us.
Okay. The impact that it will have on your upland lots and the people that live in those other spaces, it's going to increase the value on those. So I just think, sleep on it, think about it. I do appreciate the parklets. I do appreciate the public access that's in this. But we have some very real concerns about the permittability for the marina aspects, and then again, what happens with overall public access, which I know it's private now and it doesn't have it. So anything is a net gain, but again, we're looking out for the developer's best interest as well as the community and the suggestions and recommendations that we've tried to make along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here, sir.
I live at 3150 Boltwood Drive. Some of the current concerns I have is really not knowing the elevations that we're talking about. I'm gleaning it from what I've read, where they talk about 3 to 5 story buildings in those. What I think one woman brought up was the wall, and when you look at, I don't know how tall the boat storage is versus all the buildings that run along Lakeshore Drive. From my perspective, if they're 3 to 5 stories tall, on average 10, 12 feet per story, plus maybe elevator handling on top of that, you're probably at about a 60 to 70, maybe a 60-some foot height of a building there. I would imagine that would block a lot of the views from even people on top of the hill. It'd be interesting to see what the view would change. I'm in favor of development. I'm concerned about what it will do to the views of, for even people that live all along there. Because I remember I had a friend that owned a house right outside the old piano factory warehouse. It was S.D. Warren's property, and they looked at that big wall with all the windows in it, and it really wasn't that great of a site. What it'll do to it may increase the property values. It may decrease them for everybody along that wall there. I think they brought up the idea of how many traffic lights will you put along that road when you got potentially 2,000 individuals. I'm not sure how many cars that relates to, if it's an average family of 3 or 4. You can imagine, 500 to 1,000 cars coming out of there, going into 3. I think I'm not sure I saw the old one. It was a little blurry, but the 3 access points onto Lakeshore Drive, and having there's only so many ways out: Lakeshore Drive, Lincoln Street, back through through Beechwood to get out of there. So I'm not sure how that will impact, if they thought through the traffic flows through there. I'm very familiar with S.D. Warren. My mother worked there for 20 years. She'd come home and she'd smell of the sulfur when she came home. It paid a lot of good jobs over there. They paid fairly high wages. It'll be interesting to understand the 60 or 600 jobs that were mentioned. If you break it down by, owner, manager, people that will work, maids, lawn care, what kind of wages are we talking here for this property? So I am a little concerned about will the economic benefit from this property really be what people think it will be? Time will tell. Where are all the people that are buying the property coming from? If they're going to come here and use it like a condo and they come here on the weekends and leave, it'll have an impact on other things as well. And then lastly, I'm concerned about the impact on the wetland. I did not know that beach was owned by somebody, but it's one of the best views when you walk down from Cottage Grove to look out over the lake. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, you in the back, behind the pillar.
Hi there, I'm Buffy Schichtel. I live in Norton Shores, 162 Meadows Drive. I have owned property on Beach Street in Muskegon. I sold that property. I've owned properties in Lakeside. I have sold that property. I've lived, worked, sold real estate along the lakeshore. And I can tell you, this might bring me back. From Norton Shores down here, my daughter goes to Muskegon Catholic. I choose to drive in every day, and I'd really like to see this development come to Muskegon. There's been a lot of development along the lakeshore. I support all of it. Invested in Adelaide Point. John's got a great plan here. If it's my vote that counts, I vote yes. So Muskegon tagline is "Let's go Muskegon, watch us go." So let's get going Muskegon. Let this site and the development go. Thank you.
Anyone else here? Yes.
So, Ryan Leesma, Adelaide Point, 1204. I look at Muskegon differently than most, I think. I look at what the opportunity is for everybody that lives here. The Planning Commission, the mission per the website, is to promote the public interest. What is the public interest? I think when you're talking about a community like this, it's access to resources, it's jobs, it's prosperity, it's dignity, it's class. It means that we all are treated the same, that we don't say here are the haves and here are the have-nots. We are all human beings in this community. And I look at history as the slow march of democratization of benefit, information, access to jobs, opportunities, etc. Muskegon Lake is the most valuable thing we have. It's always been that way. And it always will. And I think making sure that we democratize every asset that this community has is a moral imperative. We don't just take the best of us and hand it to the few. We take the best of us and we give it to the many. And so we can talk about, what do we need right now? We need houses. We need bathrooms. But we don't put bathrooms on the waterfront. We need incomes. We need prosperity. These are things that we suffer right now. We don't have what we should have. And I think it's really important to think about not just what is in the best interest of the public here, present. What is in the best interest of the public 50 years from now, 100 years from now? We're all dead in 50 years. How is this plan going to create access, prosperity, and community when we're gone? I didn't do Adelaide Point so that I could just sell to rich people. That doesn't matter. The reason it's open to everybody is because it doesn't matter who you are, you should be able to come to the lake. We created jobs on this site for a century and a half. I don't think we should throw that away. We should all work for the prosperity of our communities. There is no me in community.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Scott Timmer. My address is 281 Seminole in Norton Shores. I'm an attorney, and I've represented Pure Muskegon, the seller of the property, for the last 10 years after Pure Muskegon was formed in 2013. As John touched on, the paper mill was built in 1899. It's a 120-acre site with a mile of frontage. Paper mill closed in 2009 and became vacant and an eyesore. Melching, a demolition contractor, bought it in order to demolish the paper mill building and sell off the equipment, which it did. Sappy, the final paper mill operator, recorded a restrictive covenant that provided that the property could only be used for industrial purposes, which was a huge impediment. Obviously, it precluded redevelopment. As of 2013, when Pure Muskegon was formed, there was no prospect for redevelopment. Melching's plans included selling or using the site either for a scrapyard or for shipbreaking, which meant that obsolete ships would be dragged up on the shore and then cut into pieces and sold for scrap, similar to what you may have seen is done in places like Bangladesh. The Pure Muskegon members were horrified at the prospect of a scrapyard or a shipbreaking facility on that property, and they formed Pure Muskegon in order to collectively buy it and pursue a successful redevelopment. Pure Muskegon entered into an agreement with Melching to buy it in 2013. That agreement went through, I think, 17 amendments, and there were 3 years of negotiations with the state and Eagle and Sappy and Melching in order to remove this restrictive covenant. That was successful in 2016, and Sappy agreed to remove the restrictive covenant. Pure Muskegon acquired the property in July of 2016 and engaged a large environmental firm, Fishbeck, to develop plans for cleanup and redevelopment. The agreement with Melching required Melching to take down the 2 tall smokestacks and also remove the 7-acre lime pile on the site. All that was done, and it was done with Eagle certification that had been done properly. Pure Muskegon didn't buy the property to develop it itself. It instead planned to sell it for redevelopment. Over the last 8 years, Pure Muskegon has negotiated with a number of prospective developers. Many of them either didn't have the financial ability to buy it, or else they were put off by the environmental condition of the property, and also significantly the railroad right-of-way. After 8 years of negotiation with CSX that involved the city as well, that was finally accomplished, and the tracks are now being removed. Pure Muskegon listed the property with Cushman & Wakefield last spring. It's a national real estate marketing firm. Several prospective purchasers replied. Pure Muskegon selected Parkland and John Rooks largely because of his successful track record in both Grand Rapids and Muskegon. As everyone knows, he converted the old Comerica building into High Point Flats. He bought the Shoreline Inn, which was a failing hotel, and turned it around. He successfully developed Terrace Point Landing into single-family homes on a former foundry site.
That's 3 minutes.
I'm sorry. We believe that Parkland and Rooks is the best choice for development of the property. There's really a stark choice here between keeping this property in its current undesirable state and the Rooks plan, which is a wonderful transformational development, and Pure Muskegon urges the Planning Commission to recommend approval by the City Commission of the Rooks plan. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sir?
My name's Wes Eklund, 481 Seminole, and I'm a member of Pure Muskegon. Since our group has owned this property, we spent a lot of our own time, effort, and money to do the right thing for Muskegon. Continue to do that. Everyone that we've talked to about developing this property has had their own ideas about how it should be developed. But when we bought it, we were unaware that it had PFAS. We knew there were contaminants, we knew there were problems. PFAS changed a lot of the things that could or could not be done
on the property without exacerbating the leakage of PFAS into the water. A lot of the prospective buyers we've talked to over the years had all different plans, and this is a very good plan, and there were other previously good plans, but none of them were willing to spend very much of their own money, their time, their effort, their interest, and their vision into making it a reality. John's the closest developer and the one who's expended the most energy, time, and vision to make something that will benefit us all a reality. I think on behalf of my members of Pure Muskegon, we'd encourage you to give him the support that we have given him with this proposal that he's got in front of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Oh, we have to do the phones. We have not gone to phones yet.
Is there anybody on the phone line that wishes to speak to this?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
Hi, you've reached the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Muskegon. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to talk.
Jerry Van Dyne, Muskegon Heights.
Go ahead, sir.
The project looks really good. My only concern is the attorney behind the project. He's sitting directly behind Rory Charon. His name is David Charon. He was recently suspended by the Attorney Discipline Board for fraud. He now undergoes counseling and is involved in a mentorship program. Be very
That has
careful
nothing
in
to
looking
do with
at
our
his documents
project.
that he drafts. Thank you.
Hang up on him. Anybody else on the phone line that wants to talk about this project?
Germane to this PUD.
Okay.
Oh, we have somebody
Here-
else. Hold on. Hi, you've reached the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Muskegon. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to talk.
Yep. Hey guys, this is Leah. I'm with the Watershed Partnership, the Public Access Committee.
Tell them to
I would
turn
come
down
to
the
firstly
audio
thank
behind.
everybody for their
I think they got
engagement. I think we've come a long way from previous problems through development of the city, and we've been able to work through this in a much more democratic manner than we have in the past. So firstly, I just wanted to state that. Second of all, I've had the opportunity to tour the site with Mr. Rooks. He has been very available to folks who have comments and input in the site. I also wanted to appreciate him for that at this point. I have submitted a letter to the Planning Commission stating the general nature of the concerns from the Public Access Committee, but I just wanted to reiterate them for the public today. As Dennis mentioned, a buffer zone is something that we think is very important to maintain the health of the lake, which is the primary concern of the Watershed Partnership. And in addition to that, we really have an opportunity to bring people of this new community, this new little village within Muskegon, to give them the best quality of life as possible and to interact with them as a new part of our community. And I think that the more that we can do that along the lakeshore, the better. So we should have all opportunities to get to the water and to see it from different levels, to walk up to it, to touch it, the Muskegon Lake, that is not any ponds that might need to be cleaned up. So lastly, I just wanted to mention that the properties along Lakeshore Drive that really kind of do make a bit of a wall, those I think could be potentially turned onto an angle, facing kind of angled towards the northeast slightly. I think that would try to alleviate some of that wall perception from the community and also get a little bit more view into this little village, this little new community that will be formed. bike access is great. Bathroom access is something that another person mentioned. I think we do need to make sure that somewhere in this property there are publicly accessible bathrooms. We don't want to only leave that to the retailers to support. I think that if we truly want people to be able to flow through this property on bike, on foot, on car, that they need to have the ability to use a publicly accessible restroom. I think that's very important. And to make sure that we consider accessing the water by wildlife, not just by people, and how are we helping to make that happen. And I'd really like to know if Mr. Rooks could kind of speak to that and let folks know how he's expecting the lake to interact with this community. And by the lake, I mean the wildlife involved in the lake all around. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on our phone line?
I think we have another one.
You've reached the City of Muskegon Planning Commission meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Brian Mazaid, and I'm a city planning commissioner. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting, but I wanted to make some comments. I think that this is a land use issue that the city should support the PUD and the site plan. I think it's well done. I think Mr. Rooks has taken into consideration and been willing to make changes to his initial plan based on public input. I think overall it's a good use of mixed use of the property. And I think one thing that's really important is that he's providing a lot of public access on private property. And I would hope that the Planning Commission would support the plan and make a recommendation for approval to the City Commission. Thank you.
Feel better, Commissioner Mazaid.
Anyone else on our phone line right now?
Not at the moment, and nobody was beating
Commissioner Hood, do you have something you want to do?
Yeah, I move to close the public hearing.
Support. Been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, what's your pleasure, Commissioner? Yes.
Just
Mayor?
to confirm before we're moving forward, there's going to be two different motions. One for the preliminary first, and then the second one's final with the conditions.
Correct.
Or
But
we
we
combine
want
them?
to have discussion first, and then have the legal counsel go over the 7 questions.
Can you reiterate that? So
we're
going to have that discussion before we make any motions, or are we jumping into motions?
Before.
They're going to do this right now. Okay. But then after that's done, there'll be a motion on the preliminary PUD, and then a motion on the final PUD with the conditions. Correct?
Correct.
All right, gotcha.
Okay. Commissioner Attorney.
Commissioner Attorney.
Counselor.
So, do you want to move to the next one? So, staff's answered the 7 statements, standards for the PUD. Would you like us to read out the answer to these? Do you want to read the question first, Mr. Schreier, or how should we go about this?
Well, I think the questions are in front of the zoning ordinance sets 7 criteria to consider on approving or rejecting a PUD. We think it's important that we focus on those. You have question number 1.
We've just a.
You have question number 1 in front of you, and you have staff's recommendation. I certainly can read it, but it's in front of you anyway. The thought was any discussion on that, and then I'm going to ask individually what each of your view is as to whether this condition is met or not met, so that the focus stays on the 7 criteria as opposed to a much more general concern. So I certainly can read number 1, but you have it on the screen.
And you want to know whether we agree with you or not. So you're going to call on us?
Yes.
You're going to call on me?
Yes.
If I say agree, is that fine?
Sure. That's all. Yes. Okay. And whenever the discussion on 1 is done, we'll move and indication. We'll then move to 2, 3, etc.
I agree with staff's response.
Is there any discussion needed? If not, I'm going to go through the list.
I have a comment regarding the useful recreational opportunities. I think that can be improved in this plan. And I think there was a suggestion tonight that I think is ideal and would just put the crown on this project. And that's that 35-foot setback with the bike trail going along the lakefront in front of the houses. I think that will even improve the property values of the houses that are built there.
Any further discussion among the commissioners? If not, the question to each of you is, does the use proposed have a beneficial effect in terms of public health, safety, welfare, and convenience? That's a summary of number 1. Mr. Johnson, agree or disagree?
I agree. I certainly concur with the sentiment of Mr. Chairman that I would welcome that additional public access and that water's edge trail. Something I've been pushing and advocating for. But I agree with the PUD that's been presented to us with those conditions that satisfies that, and with regard to the circulation systems and impacts that we'll be having a traffic study that will be done as a condition.
Mr. Hood? Agree. Mr. Seifert?
Agree.
Mr. Doyle?
Agree.
Ms. Keast, I have your agree?
Yep, I absolutely do.
Ms. Blake?
Agree.
Mr. Mahalski?
Yes, I agree.
Question number 2.
May I?
Yes, sir.
When you go around the room asking us with who we agree, if each of us agree, can we get that statement or the question and the statement on the video? Is there a way to make that available? Like what we're seeing on our screen, is there a way to make it available on the video?
It is.
No, I mean at home. So, because people at home are not seeing what we're seeing.
Back there, Derek.
So I don't know if Derek's. Is he back there? I was just curious.
Got you.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. Is it consistent with the land use plan? Staff's recommendation is that it is. Do you want discussion before we go to my asking each of you?
I will say that the very first time I saw this proposal a month ago, it was just prior to last month's planning commission meeting. My first blush reaction was like, absolutely not. This is not acceptable. It did not, and I had concerns subsequently. But Mr. Rooks and his team took that feedback of mine and staff and the communities and continue to evolve it, and make it better. Even last minute changes just recently, and in the days leading to this, my concern still was that it was not aligning well enough with our master land use plan that we just adopted, and the Imagine Muskegon Lake plan that preceded that, and the DPZ design that preceded that was all planning processes going into it in concert with our community. But the more recent changes certainly have strengthened its alignment with our master land use plan, and so now I'm comfortable to answer this question myself in the affirmative when it comes to me.
Any other discussion?
I have just something that I want to throw in there too. As far as the master plan, I would agree that it matches up fairly well. I did appreciate the comments that came from the Watershed Assembly, as well as Jamie Cross in the audience. The natural buffer is really super important to the wildlife, and the unhardened shoreline is important. So the more that can be incorporated, the more it would be appreciated on this. They've worked so hard to make that such a nice lake. We've had so many issues with it over the years. I'd hate to see that go away. So it's super important.
Concur.
Any other discussion?
Regarding the buffer that was just being discussed, would it be permissible to ask the developer?
I think it would be
Okay.
appropriate at this time, since this was a major concern. Can you address the discussion about a buffer on the shoreline?
I can, and in listening to the concern and thinking about the design, there's two things I think about. It's the seawall and then the vegetation behind the seawall. And I just want you to know, our plan anyway is to have rock riprap stone as our seawall that absorbs waves, doesn't reflect waves. And it's not going to be a steel seawall or a concrete wall that reflects waves. It's going to be a soft wall, not a hard wall. And then behind that, we're totally okay to commit to native plantings at all the lakefront lots as a condition of the approval of the PUD, and we would be okay with the 30 feet of buffer. Although in the areas where we have patios or where we're taking advantage of the 15-foot setbacks, then that buffer and that native planting would be on the side yard setbacks. It would be on the surrounding areas, and we can illustrate that in the landscape plans that are subject to your final approval. It'd be similar to the beach grass at like Harbortown, and so that's what you're looking for. We're good with that. It really makes for a great environment, and native plantings are what I'm just working on at my own home. My brother's a landscaper, and he told me I couldn't use some of the plants I wanted, and told me to go native. So.
Is there any chance of moving the bike path to the waterfront at any spot on this property?
Your mayor has taken every angle possible to try to figure it out. The problem for me is I've done a market study and I've worked with real estate agents, and I just haven't figured out how to make the numbers work on this project. It's a very difficult project to make the numbers work, and I designed it this way and tried to put as much public access into it. And there's 2 miles of area to bike within the property, but I really, based on the market we are dealing with and our history with development, we really don't think we should put it in the backyard of people's homes. But I appreciate you asking again. But the buffer zone, I certainly can do the way we just talked.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, but I'll say this. I've been very doggedly pushing for that Water's Edge Trail. And particularly, I was interested in P9, connecting P9 to P12 to P13. But that's not happening right now. But I just want to share that I'm still very much interested with that far eastern edge that he's open to, reprogram potentially in concert with the community. That, if possible, I'm still going to be looking to see if we can find a way to connect P14 to P12 with the Water's Edge Trail. But that's subsequent, and that's part of acquisition, not the PUD.
If no further discussion, as to question number 2, is the use proposed consistent with land use plans? Mr. Seifert.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle.
Yes, I agree.
Ms. Keast.
Yes.
Ms. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Mahalski.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
As to number 3, the open space provided. As you see, staff's recommendation. Any discussion as to open space that hasn't occurred already? Seeing none. Mr. Doyle.
Yes, I agree.
Ms. Keast.
Yes.
Ms. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Mahalski.
Reluctantly, I agree.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Seifert.
Yes. But keep on pushing for more, though.
Moving to number 4. Concerning the off-street parking areas. Any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Keast,
Yes.
Ms. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Mahalski,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Seifert,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle.
Yes.
As to number 5, dealing with landscaping and buffering, there's been discussion before. Any further discussion? Mr. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to share that because it's right now a written condition, but that, if the Mr. Chair will allow me to make the motion when we get there, I will be including a landscape management plan shall be approved by the Public Works Director. That's inclusive of the buffer that Mr. Rooks was talking about earlier.
Seeing nothing further. Ms. Blake,
Agree.
Mr. Mahalski,
Yes. I agree.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Seifert,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Ms. Keast.
Yes.
Moving to item number 6, concerning the protection and enhancement of significant natural, historical, and architectural features. Staff opinion is that this does and indicates several nature walkways, pathways, etc. Any discussion as to number 6? Hearing none. Mr. Mahalski,
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Seifert,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Ms. Keast,
Yes.
Ms. Blake.
Yes.
Moving to item number 7, that the use proposed will result in safe, convenient, uncongested, well-defined vehicular and pedestrian circulation. There has been discussion before concerning a vehicular study that will be done. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
I just want to thank our planning manager, Franzik, as well as our planner, Jamie Pesh, for their work with the developer on adding so many more pathways and interconnectivity of pedestrian ways, and also the integration with the lakeside neighborhood with this. I think that was a significant improvement from an early iteration, so thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'd also like the city to be open to perhaps the addition of more traffic circles. The one thing that I went for a tour of the property that we discussed is more traffic. Now, seeing that there were 1,000 people that worked there at one point, I totally get that it's probably not going to be a huge traffic impact, but I'd like to keep it that way. I live right there on that side of town, and we've had all those traffic lights removed, and it'd be really nice if we didn't have those traffic lights put back. So if push comes to shove, I would highly recommend thinking about another traffic circle just to keep things calm over there.
Yes, sir.
Just also want to add that as part of our city commission's 5-year goals, it is inclusive of looking at essentially a shoreline circulator, public transit, form of public transit that's connecting from the east end of Muskegon Lake, Jackson Hill neighborhood, through our downtown, through NIMS, through Lakeside, through Pierre Marquette. And so that should help ideally alleviate some of that traffic on the road by being able to accommodate guests to our community and our residents to get to and fro across our shoreline.
Yep.
Seeing no further discussion as to whether number 7 is met, Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Seifert,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Ms. Keast,
Yes.
Ms. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Mahalski.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, all 7 of the conditions would appear to have been unanimous, that they have been satisfied. I turn this back over to you for motions to adopt the preliminary exam and the preliminary plan and the final plan with conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I move that the request for preliminary planned unit development approval at 2800-2850 Lakeshore Drive be approved contingent upon the acquisition of the property by Parkland Acquisition 6 LLC based on the PUD review standards listed in Article 21, Number 1, Part C1 through 7 of the zoning ordinance.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the request. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Shoney Blake,
Yes.
Jill Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Eric Clark,
Yes.
Yeah.
You did.
Tim Mapolsky.
Yes. That it? Motion passes. It's been approved.
Oh,
Now we
yeah,
gotta
now we gotta do the second
We're
one.
not
Yeah.
done.
Now.
Now I can get going
Yeah.
with the second one?
Yes,
All
you
right.
can go now.
I move that the request for final plan unit development approval at 2800 to 2850 Lakeshore Drive be recommended to the City Commission for approval contingent upon the acquisition of the property by Parkland Acquisition 6 LLC based on the PUD review standards listed in Article 21, Number 1, Part C 1 through 7 of the zoning ordinance with the following conditions. 1. A traffic study be conducted, reviewed, and published by the Public Works Director. 2. A stormwater permit is granted from the Engineering Department. 3. A utility plan is approved by the Public Works Director. 4. All applicable permits from various state of Michigan departments are obtained. 5. Fire access is provided to the marina slips. 6. The P7 public park would be relocated per the attached drawing from the interior pond to the Muskegon Lake lakeshore, either using option A or option B. 7. The P8 public park would be relocated per the attached drawing from the interior pond to the Muskegon Lake lakeshore, either using option A or option B. P12, using grant money, would be enhanced with a new above-water boardwalk and fishing platform in a way similar to the attached drawing, subject to DNR and Eagle approval, similar to P13 and P14. Number 9, footnote number 11 on the large format site plan would include a potential 1 to 3 level retail stack, which could include coffee shop, sandwich shop, convenience store, ship store, marina office, and rooftop deck in the northeast corner of the boat storage building, similar to the restrooms in the southeast corner. And number 10, developer is willing to sell the land to the city for an additional park located where the waterfront lots are shown adjacent to Park P9, specifically 2 lots to the west and 8 lots to the east, as long as they are contiguous. Providing the city purchases the land within the next 2 years after Parkland's closing date, the price would be discounted at $148,750 per lot. This is simply an option to purchase, and the city is under absolutely no obligation to purchase land. And finally, condition number 11, a landscape management plan will be submitted and approved by the Public Works Director, inclusive of the natural vegetation buffer.
Support.
It's moved and supported to approve the final PUD plan. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Roll call, please.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Shoney Blake,
Yes.
Jill Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Tim Mapolsky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
100%.
Evan,
I
have a question. If the restrictive covenant has been removed, why haven't we changed the
Yeah, that's
zoning?
Do we need to?
And if there's no reason we haven't, can we start that process right now?
Well, we did, in a sense.
All the one? We
Because
don't
the
need to.
Well, I'm saying the PUD is a rezoning itself.
Right.
So in a
And
sense,
there's
we
a-
started the rezoning process.
Right.
The overlay zoning, several properties around the community have that. The Shaw Walker building still has industrial as the underlying zoning.
Can you clarify on that? Because you just used the word overlay. Because previously I was asking about that, and someone had mentioned a PUD can be an overlay or it can be a rezoning itself. And if it's an overlay, the underlying zoning still exists. And if it's a PUD, then it replaces the underlying zoning. And so yesterday when I asked this, it was my understanding this was not an overlay, that this is a rezoning as a planned unit development. So the pre-existing industrial I-2 would not exist if this PUD is ultimately adopted. Can we get clarification
the
there?
zoning ordinance states that it's a PUD overlay district.
So the I-2 would still exist. So any future property owner could choose to do the PUD or an I-2.
The PUD would be in place. That would have to be revoked.
Okay. So as long as the PUD exists, they could not do I-2 industrial purposes. Okay.
Can't we just change the zoning?
Yeah, then we don't have to worry about it.
What's preventing us from changing the zoning?
Another committee.
You could. We historically haven't done it that way, but after Mr. Schreier.
If you would like to consider that, I would encourage that staff in our office be requested to provide an opinion as to the effectiveness of such a change.
Okay.
Mr. Manager, could you direct our attorney
Make a
to
request.
form a committee to study this process of changing the zoning on the property?
I will confer with legal counsel
Okay.
the next time he's in the office. I do have one, Director Ekholm, Mr. Chair, Director Ekholm wanted to add something.
Okay.
Good evening. I apologize. After the second motion, I realized that I believe that the wrong address was read for the motion. I believe it's 2400 and 2850 Lakeshore Drive. I'm not sure if there's a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo.
Okay, so I think that motion should be restated with the correct address for the sake of clarity.
Or
Can we just amend that
can we amend the
motion?
motion?
Because I don't want to read the whole thing.
Okay.
No, you gotta read that whole thing.
So
there needs to be a
then
four.
you need to amend your
Okay.
preliminary for
So-
2400.
Noticed it a
Okay.
long time ago.
Good catch now.
So it's 2400 and
2400 and 2850
Okay.
are the
Okay.
legal addresses of the
It's just
parcel.
2400 and 2850,
Yes.
not two.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I move to amend my motion for preliminary plan unit development approval to reflect the address of 2400 to 2850 Lakeshore Drive.
Support. Again.
It's been moved and supported
Again.
to amend the motion to approve the PUD.
Real address.
Yeah.
So, is there any discussion on that? Roll call.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Shoni Blake,
Yes.
Joe Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Tim Halsky,
Yes.
What would have happened if somebody would have said no?
And then, sorry. Motion.
Now we have to do his. Motion passed.
motion passes.
Okay, sir.
Ken Johnson.
I move to amend my motion that the request for final plan unit development approval at 2400 and 2850 Lakeshore Drive be recommended to the City Commission for approval contingent upon the acquisition of the property by Parkland Acquisition 6 LLC based on PUD review standards listed in Article 21, Number 1, Part C, 1 through 7 of the zoning ordinance with those following conditions I referenced earlier.
Support. Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Roll call.
Jonathan Seifert,
Yes.
Ken Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Doyle,
Yes.
Shoni Blake,
Yes.
Joe Montgomery Keys,
Yes.
Tim Halsky,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, is there any other business to come before this committee today?
May,
Isn't that enough?
may I just very quickly make a couple remarks?
No.
I mean, I can reserve it to the City Commission, but I think it's appropriate to just maybe make them right this moment.
You go right ahead, man.
So I'll do it very quickly, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your patience and giving this time. Anyhow, I want to thank Pure Muskegon and all the members of Pure Muskegon for the work that you've done to acquire this property from its previous owner who had intended to use it as a scrapyard and for industrial only purposes. And as part of that previous owner's, Melching's committed to deed restrictions that prevented it being used for anything other than industrial, and prohibited even the ability to test for understanding what the environmental conditions therein are, so that we could even figure out a way to clean it up and move forward with redevelopment. So I just want to express my appreciation to Pure Muskegon Group for the effort and energies and resources that you all have put into getting us here. It was much ado has been said about the, I forget how many thousands of pages and thousands of documents are available about the conditions of those environments, but we wouldn't even know what the conditions of that environment are today had it not been for the efforts of Pure Muskegon. And so I just want to, again, thank you for getting us here, helping us understand those conditions, getting to redevelopment plan.
I'd just like to add that I thank John Rooks for taking this project on.
That's my
Yeah.
It's a huge project.
Absolutely.
You've done some quality projects here in Muskegon, so I've got a lot of confidence in you that this is going to come out to be a quality project also.
Ditto.
Now we're adjourned.
All right, we are adjourned.
That was.
Well, that wasn't the longest meeting.